Come on, go, Nacho! Everybody, son! Come on!
Oh, yes!
Oh, yes! Yes!
No! Oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. United are 1-0 up.
Did a cross and there's going to be the opening goal.
Oh, Bozo! You, man, we are shit, you know. Oh, fucking hell, man.
Mainoo! 2-0! Come on! It's 2-0 to United! Kobe Mainoo! What a goal for Manchester United! 2-0. Rashford with a fantastic ball out to the wing. A little ball by Garnacho slits it into Bruno.
It's too much! This is too much! Oh, Pep! The bald-headed fraud! That's how you manage a football team in the final, boys!
What a goal! You prick! Oh my God! That's my man!
Mali. Mali.
So Mainoo who makes it 2-0, that is 2-0. There's no way that's not 2-0, that's 2-0.
No, it's 2-0 United. It's 2-0 United, that is so easy.
Garnacho and he squares it across and Bruno Fernandes and it's 2-0 now.
Get up. Look! It's 2-0! Man! Doku on! Embarrassing! Absolutely shite, man!
Yes, come on! Have some of that! Nolan Liam, don't look back in anger.
We have done it! Manchester United are the winners of the 2023-2024 FA Cup!
We are shit, you know.
We are shit, you know.
We are shit, you know.
Let's go!
Absolutely shite, man. No.
Honest to God, what are you thinking? You've got absolutely no chance of winning this game.
You've got absolutely no chance of winning this game.
Welcome back to the Top 6 show. Hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribing. We've got Pete, we've got Egal, we've got Staffy, we've got Man Like Will and Henry right on the show today. We have been looking for Chelsea fans, but they're all busy. All the Chelsea fans are busy. I don't know where they're at. Gentlemen, though, how are you all? You all well? You all good?
I'm well. I'm doing very well.
How you feeling?
I am still on top of the world. I'm not going to lie. It's been an amazing weekend. United winning the FA Cup. We knocked Newcastle out of European football without playing them. We knocked Chelsea down to the Conference League without playing them. We end up having a better and more successful campaign than most of our rivals. And it's been a thing of beauty. It's been Leeds didn't make it back into the Premier League. It's been a great weekend. It's been a great weekend indeed.
Wait, I have a request. I've been bottom row pretty much the whole season because we used to do it by standing. So whoever's first, second, third. But can we do it today by whoever has trophies on the panel gets to sit top row? There we go.
We have to put Will top then as a Madrid fan because obviously, like,
okay,
they won their league and they're in a Champions League final. Then yourself. Then we'll go with Gary comes second in the Prem.
Fair enough.
Newcastle or Spurs? Who deserves to go next?
Spurs.
I'm going to go with Newcastle next. They tried to win the domestic trophy. Spurs didn't. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to leave Emery down there, bruv. Get used to it, Emery. Being bottom of the pile, it's just the way it is. But yes, it was beautiful. And we will be getting on to that game. And there's a few bits we want to speak about. We are going to talk about Kobbie Mainoo's brilliant performance at 19 years of age. We're going to be having a dialogue, though, about Erling Haaland now. I think that's 9 semi-finals and finals without a goal for that man. Is there something about that needs to be discussed? But kicking the show off, we have to really start with sort of the managerial merry-go-round. And we have to start with Chelsea because yesterday there was a number of reports stating that De Zerbi was going to end up being the guy. 24 hours later, it has now been confirmed by Fabrizio Romano that Chelsea and Enzo Maresca have agreed all the personal terms. Leicester have given permission to Chelsea to formally speak to their manager, and it does appear now that Chelsea will be appointing Maresca on a 2-year deal. So a lot of Chelsea fans making out that Poch wasn't really the guy because he only gave him a 2-year deal. This man is also going to be on a 2-year deal. I haven't spoken to Pete in a while, so I want to throw this to Pete. What's your reaction to this in terms of getting rid of Poch and then going for a very inexperienced championship manager in Enzo Maresca?
I'm not going to lie. I was actually quite shocked. I was when I first heard it come through the other day when they were first linked. I was thinking, like, how have they even come to this decision? How have they even thought that this guy was even sort of capable of taking the reins at Chelsea? Considering that people ummed and ahed about De Zerbi being linked. Some people and ahed when Potter was given the job. Some people and ahed when Pochettino was given the job. For then him to be considered, and now effectively you're telling us that it's looking like it's a done deal. I'm absolutely stunned. I'm not going to lie. For me, a guy that's not managed in the top league of any of the top 5 divisions in Europe, and only just been promoted with Leicester, and that wasn't plain sailing at all. I think it's a massive risk. I'm not going to lie. I'm not surprised Chelsea fans are not wanting to come on today, because I think they're probably feeling it right now as well. Because from a season, particularly the back end of the season, where they finished very strong and with assurance, there's now big questions that are going to be asked of the manager and of this group of players going into next season. And you could argue there's now more pressure on Chelsea going into this season, next season, than there was the season just gone.
There certainly could be. And Will, the other day, you said that sacking Poch was a sign of standards, which I get your logic on that. And this isn't a dig at that opinion, because they're saying you didn't achieve. Chelsea briefed the media and said, well, you didn't achieve. We went for a data review. What do you make of this appointment that from this particular moment in time looks a certainty?
Yeah, so when I first heard Enzo Maresca or whatever, my first thought was who? Because I don't understand who this is. I don't watch Leicester, so I don't really have an opinion on him as a manager, but just as an overall, I think I look like an idiot now from what I said last week about standards, because you can't have those same high standards when you're appointing an unknown manager that's, again, like you said, never managed in a top flight. So now it's kind of like, what are the expectations that this Chelsea board, what are they going to set for him? So I think he has to be given at least 2 years, because the expectations, it has to be on the floor right now for what they're actually thinking that he's going to do. But I don't like the signing, though, just based off the name alone. I have to get more familiar with his game before I could really give like an official opinion on it. But I think, there's so many other big name managers who are out there that Chelsea could have went and got. And then for it to end up being a Leicester City manager that you're going to have to pay them, $10 million for, and then hire his whole backroom staff and all this stuff. To me, it's an L signing for Chelsea. Even though
how could you say it's an L when you just said you don't know more of his game? Like, what is this whole thing about big names? What does big names do for you?
Well, so I prefer more so proven managers than experimental managers, especially when you're going to be at a big club. Like, to me, I don't really understand the whole notion of only wanting young managers and like that kind of thing that people bring up. So when I see the other names who are available, right, like a Thomas Tuchel or De Zerbi or like Conte, Mourinho, maybe even Zidane, right? I know that's like a long shot, but point is, there's bigger name managers out there that I think would have been better to go get than this Enzo guy. So that's why I don't like the signing, but they still have work to do this summer. I still am high on Chelsea, though. I think that next season they'll look better than they did this one, because I think that they're going to go out there and maybe do some better business. But yeah, for me, that wouldn't have been my first choice.
Let me just say something. This whole big name thing is a myth, bro. It's such a hype, bro. It's actually pathetic when people say big name, big name, big name. Because we could do the same thing with players. We can sit here, especially United and Chelsea in recent years. We can sit here and talk about how many big name players we signed that ended up not doing well for our club. And people said, "Oh, you know what? We need to stop. We need to stop just recruiting big names, the shiny toy, and actually go after players that fit the system, that fit the project, that fit what the manager wants. Go for profiles of instead of the big names. That should be the same thing you should be doing with managers. Because we just sit here. By the way, I'm not saying go get Maresca. This is not what I'm saying at all. Okay, but this is the myth that managers who haven't managed in top flights don't deserve a job in a top flight yet. We can easily, bro. I can easily sit here and remind everyone that Pep Guardiola himself, when he got the Barcelona job, he was managing Barcelona B. So he never had La Liga experience, but he got the job, and we all saw how it turned out to him. Zidane himself was in what's it called, Madrid's second team. Then he became the assistant to Carlo Ancelotti, and then they gave him the job. Would anyone at that time, when Zidane got the job, forget the Zidane, the player. Zidane as a player is great. As a name in management, Zidane was nothing as a name in management when he took over the Madrid job. And he ended up winning 3 Champions Leagues in a row. At the time, we could have all used the same argument with them, and it didn't work.
That's an L example.
That's not an L example. There's so many.
That's clearly an L example, because when you're taking over a team that has Ronaldo, Casemiro, Marcelo, like those world-class players, the expectations
actually
are
proves
for
my
you to
point
win.
even more.
It's the same thing with Barcelona when Pep came. You got Messi and all those guys that are in their prime.
No.
So like,
you're not gonna do that to me. You're not gonna do that to me.
Why
that
not?
Barcelona
I think,
team, that Barcelona team, when Pep took over at that year, he got rid of all the big names right away. Iniesta wasn't that Iniesta. Messi was a prospect, but Messi became Messi the minute Guardiola came in.
He got rid of Eto'o and Deku immediately.
Thank you. You remember that, Henry. In 2008, when we knocked them out, they got Pep and they absolutely redone that team. Pep actually helped some of these players become great the next year, because the first thing he did was get rid of Ronaldinho, Eto'o, and Deco and all these big names. Then he started relying on Xavi was already relied on, but the Iniestas and Messi more. He made Messi his main guy as soon as of managers who haven't proven anything in managerial in their managerial career until they take on a top flight team and they become that. By no means am I saying any of these managers we're talking about are about to be generational, because Pep is generational. That's what everyone tells me. They're like, oh, stop saying that because he's generational. No one thought Pep was generational when he took over. No one thought what's his name, Zidane was generational, took over. Even Arteta, you can use Arteta as an example, even though he hasn't won anything yet, but he's also done very decent and he's playing very good football and he's getting a team to compete for trophies every year. He's still to go over our line, but yeah, I get that. So I just gave you examples of managers who haven't done anything before they took over. Some of them won incredible stuff because Pep won a sextuple in his first year. Zidane did a three-peat with the Champions League. Arteta obviously didn't win anything, but they all did one thing, which is proof that they actually can manage in high-level footballs if they're given football clubs, if they're given a chance. McKenna could be one of them. Maresca could be one of them. There's so many teams that managers that could be one of them, and you will never find out until they get that jump. They don't necessarily all the time have to prove anything in the top flight to take on the job. Yes, it will take them time to prove that they're winners, but you don't need to just always say, "Have you managed top flight?" No, all right, I'm not hiring you. It's a myth, bro. It's not a true thing. It's actually a myth.
No, okay, but then now the expectations are for Chelsea. Now what? Because so they got to they got to a final last season, got to the semifinals, finished 6th. All right, you sacked Pochettino. So now what are you expecting this Enzo guy to do? That's why I'm saying that, because it's weird, because I don't really know what Chelsea are doing. It doesn't really seem like managerial. Yes, we don't know what this Enzo guy's going to do, but it doesn't really seem like much of an upgrade. So now for a club that usually do not give their managers any time, they're going to have to give him time. And it has to now work out, because you can't sack him after next season. That's why I would have went with a bigger name manager, somebody that's more proven, that could have maybe brought stability to the club. You already have a young squad there, so now why go bring in a young unproven manager? Why not go bring in a manager that has a bigger CV?
I personally would, if I'm a Chelsea fan, I would want De Zerbi. If I'm a Chelsea fan, right? I feel like De Zerbi fits that squad more, but I wouldn't completely write off Maresca if he comes over just because he's only managed Leicester. No, he's done a very good job. And don't forget, this Leicester team, most of us agreed that this team was too good to get relegated. So he's managing a lot of Premier League quality players in that team, and there's a reason why they got back into the Premier League very easily. And you'll see, I most likely will predict that Leicester will stay in the Premier League next season anyways. So yes, he managed them in the Championship, but he's managed some good quality players, because some of these players were too good to get knocked out anyway. To get relegated anyways. My point, as I'm trying to say, is yes, maybe De Zerbi is a better option. I agree with you if that's what you're saying, but it doesn't always have to be the big name. The big name does not actually translate into anything onto the pitch if you don't have the proper the proper structure on how to just have these players on the pitch and play in a certain way. Because Poch is a bigger name than Maresca, and we've seen his football wasn't good enough.
But
Maresca's played good
that's
football.
the issue I think Chelsea have. I think the issue Chelsea have is they have too many cooks in the kitchen. They have too many people messing up things. So and specifically when you look at the ownership or the CEOs, these guys are directly handpicking people. They're telling them they have to play certain players in certain positions. They're briefing the media that the reason why Pochettino was sacked was because he wanted too much control in the signings. Then they're briefing the media when Tuchel got sacked that they wanted to let him go because he didn't want to get involved in it and he just wanted to coach. And these other things, it just tells me that the job that the guy that they hired, I don't know this for a fact, but based on everything I'm seeing, I'm almost assuming that they hired somebody who's less qualified for the position in order they can control him a lot more and he can just sit back and do his job and they can do all the other things that they want to run. Because it looks like Pochettino, the difference that they had was not on the pitch, because at the end of the season, they came out and said, you know what, they wanted to get into Europe. After the season, they're talking about, no, we wanted to get top 4. He didn't reach the standards. If I'm not mistaken, their standards, at no point did Chelsea come out with a briefing to me or anywhere where I read throughout the whole season saying they demand top 4, a top 4 finish for Pochettino. It was always get back into Europe. From what I read.
Can I ask you something? Did you know that when City signed Jeremy Doku last summer, Pep didn't know who he was? He said, "Who's this Doku guy?"
Yeah, but that's irrelevant to my point.
No, so this is why it relates to your point. You said they hired a manager so they can control him. Would you say the fact that they signed Doku without Pep knowing him, does that mean that Pep is being controlled in City? Or does that mean that they actually have a proper structure, that they have the recruitment people and they leave the coaching to Pep? Obviously, they consult him. I'm not saying like Doku just signed up to the locker room next day and he was like, hey, by the way, we signed this guy. We just didn't tell you about it. Obviously, he's been told. But he leaves the recruitment for the recruitment people. That's one thing we always praise City for. Why are we not giving Chelsea? Yes, I understand there's criticism to what they've done in the past couple of years, and they recruited too much. But why not we giving them a chance to actually prove like, hey, listen, we want a head coach to be just a head coach, and we'll keep the recruitment to the recruiting people. It doesn't necessarily mean that
I'm not actually bashing.
But we're just limiting to the job.
I'm not bashing the coach. I'm just bashing the way that Chelsea have been running for the last 2.5 years. Chopping and changing, constantly moving in different directions, never really giving anybody time or stability in the job. So then getting somebody who's unproven also is going to be divisive right away, because certain Chelsea fans will not want him. Certain Chelsea fans will right away be on his case if things go wrong. It's going to cause, it's almost like a poison chalice. Like I said, when Pochettino came in and when Graham Potter came in, the Chelsea job right now in the Premier League is probably the most toxic position to get into. And it's based on everything around there. And any manager who comes in there, they can sit back and say, I just want to coach. But if at the end of the year, if you get into an argument with the manager or the owners, you're out in 2 seconds. And if you don't reach some hypothetical targets that they keep changing every 2 weeks, you're going to get yourself sacked. I just think Chelsea at this moment in time, if they're going to hire somebody, trust them, give them the right tools and work with them and try to sit back and don't get too involved. Let the football people do their job. And if the coach says, I need this one player to help me out, maybe give it to him. Because Chelsea of old, the reason why they were successful, Roman Abramovich, as much as you want to criticize him for sacking managers, he constantly supported every single person who came into a T, maybe to a fault. But at the same time, he did support them and they did win.
Yeah, but even in that era, Egal, I think there's a balance here. I think we look at this managers wanting or head coaches wanting control. I think we look at it all in a very polarized way. So you look at De Zerbi at Brighton. The more you read into him wanting control, it wasn't that he wanted to have complete power over everybody coming in and everybody going out. It's essentially he was saying, please stop selling all of my best players. I can't keep growing and developing a team if you're selling everybody. That's very different from wanting complete out and out control of a situation.
Tomatoes. You get what I mean?
No, but it isn't tomatoes. There is nuance to these circumstances. I don't think all your points are wrong, by the way. I don't. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that when it comes to Chelsea wanting a manager they can control, maybe it's because I'm a business owner that I don't have a problem with that, because I definitely want to control my employees. To a certain degree, there's going to be freedom within the role that you have, but you are still going to perform and do things in the way in which that me as the business owner want you to do them. Now, you do get that a lot in 2024. Some people look at that as like a weird mind control, almost like an illegal thing. And it's like, no, it's just being employed, bruv. It's quite normal. Like if you go to McDonald's and they say flip the burgers, they're not treating you like a servant. They're treating you like an employee, right? And that's what Chelsea are trying to create. And Roman, if you go back and look at it, signed a number of players that the manager didn't ask for. Roman, if you go back and look at it, and the club bought players, like they were working on the Drogba deal ever before Jose was in as their manager. They used to do club signings. The reason why I think they have to adapt is because they're not the biggest fish in the pond anymore financially. So I think you've got to be more strategic with your planning, but you have to get that balance right. I think they can't have a manager that wants to run the show, but equally, you know, they need someone that sees football in the same way as them. And I get where Staffy's coming from. I think that, you know, this guy deserves a chance and an opportunity. The mistakes that I think Chelsea's board have made so far is they've picked the wrong person for one reason or another. In terms of they bring in Poch within a year, Poch and them are sort of a clashing over their view of how to move forward. That's bad due diligence, by the way, from both sides. Because 12 months in, if your relationship has already gone south, there's a problem in that. That would be more my concern. And I've said it to Chelsea fans. The names they're linked to, I'm not really, not for me to be, I'm not like, oh my God, that's embarrassing for Chelsea. I don't really feel that way. I think that, you know, there's some really talented up and coming managers in that set that could go to another level. Could go wrong as well, by the way. My concern if I was a Chelsea fan would be the people running my club getting it right and the direction that they're going in, because they've gone from experienced manager to relatively inexperienced in Potter, then to an experienced guy, now back to an inexperienced. It's the plan that I've got a concern with more than what they're actually recruiting. But that's my say. Sorry, Jim here says, Terry, Kate's sorry she's not on the show. Yeah, I know she's hungover. She had to pull out today. I hope she's feeling better, but it is self-inflicted, so not much sympathy, really. Henry, how do you see this going for Chelsea if this news is true, that Enzo is on his way in?
I think it's a massive, massive gamble, to be honest. I do agree with what Staffy's saying, though. Managers need a chance. And I agree that it is a little bit of a myth, because until you get that chance, you're never really going to know what someone's like at the elite level. But what you just said there with regards to a plan is kind of where I'm sitting on this, because you Pochettino, I think, to finish 6th and get a Europa League position, considering where he was in December.
Conference League.
Sorry. Or to get, finish 6th in the league, but get Conference League is considering where they were, is a remarkable turnaround. Unfortunate events, Man United go and win the FA Cup. Chelsea get demoted into the Conference League. I don't think it's a bad first season, but now it's like, how much pressure is going to be on and how much time is going to be given to, is it Enzo Maresca is his name? If he doesn't perform immediately, I don't see them giving him more than a season. I mean, what you just said there with regards to if the relationship's already fallen down, if I was going into that club, that wouldn't give me any confidence whatsoever. And that's why I feel they haven't gone for a big name. Like the managers have been linked to, I mean, yes, De Zerbi's kind of medium size, but he's not an elite manager. And who's the Ipswich manager? McKenna was also linked. So it's almost like they want to try their own, kind of give a young manager time, develop players and go their own way. But for me, it's a massive gamble. Like if you want to get top 4 next season, I'll be honest, I'll say it right now, I don't think Chelsea will get top 4. This manager's managed one season in the Championship, unproven, but at the same time, he does need time, which is why I said McKenna should go Brighton. I said this on Friday's show with KJ and Jaws on the squad. That's your kind of next step up. Going to Chelsea is massive step up. And if it doesn't work, where does that leave Chelsea? Does that leave them their fourth manager in 3 years? For me,
well, the one question I'd throw out to Staffy, I want to throw this back at you, Staffy. I get your point.
Too many question marks.
I get your point that I've got a feeling that whether it's McKenna, but there are some really talented managers in there. It's another 2-year deal. Is that a concern that he's only getting given initially 2 years again?
It's not enough time.
And I'll tell you why. I feel like a lot of big up done. I feel like a lot of managers right now are being handed shorter term contracts. Hansi Flick, as an example, just got the job at Barcelona. You know they handed him a 2-year contract, right? So he's another example. And we all rate Hansi Flick, at least most of us, I would assume. And he just only got a 2-year. I feel like there's a whole thing right now with all big clubs, because we've seen a lot of rotation with managers, I should say, in the last few years, where they don't want to do what United's been doing. As an example, we paid David Moyes for how many years until finally he got his pay? Like I swear we were paying him until 2021. That's how much we put managers on a lot of big contracts that they didn't fulfill it. And I feel like because everyone is more on like the broke side right now of football, because football, let's be honest, the last 3 years, a lot of revenue has been lost to the clubs. They're all being less risky with giving out big big contracts to managers. They're doing the same thing at Barcelona. Obviously, even Ten Hag is only on a 3-year. Poch was on a 2-year, I believe. If Duncan correct me, there's not a lot of managers.
But we gave Potter 5. Just on that stuff, we gave Potter 5 years, bro. That's why we learned our lesson, because we had to pay him out.
Oh, did you give
over
him
12 million or something?
I could swear there was another manager that just had a short-term contract. But you know what I mean? Even Ten Hag is on a 3-year contract. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's a concern. If anything, I would praise that as a move, because they're basically telling you, we'll give you 2 years. Yeah, we'll give you 2 years. Go earn yourself another contract. If you do well in the first year or in the first 18 months, we'll give you a new contract right away. But if you don't, then there's not a lot of risk involved, because in 2 years we'll get another manager.
You don't think though, from the manager's perspective, it's not like, oh, hang on, if I don't perform, I'm at the door immediately. Like with Ange, we gave him a 4-year contract with 1 year potential extension for a further year. Like I get both sides of the argument, but if the manager's coming in and knowing that there's only a 2-year deal there, I don't think the club are looking at the new manager and thinking he's a long-term option. Like, I guess if you perform, you will get a new deal, but
can be long-term.
Just on the first notion, it wouldn't give me huge confidence. I'm not going to lie.
No, but equally, Henry, I feel like if they come in and they offer him a 5-year contract right away, I think we'd all criticize Chelsea. We'd be like, why are you giving an unproven manager such a lengthy contract? Because how many times do we say that players and managers, they kind of get complacent because they know they're making that amount of money, so they have nothing to prove anymore. They know if they get sacked, they're getting paid. Remember, what was his name? Brendan Rodgers, when he didn't get sacked for the longest at Leicester before they got relegated, is because everyone said he was on a big contract. I think if he got sacked that season, he was going to get 20 million. So they didn't sack him because they knew he was about to get big money anyways. And at some point, I feel like he gave up. So he was just like vibing it out there. And we'll criticize the club for that move. We criticized them for not being able to sack the manager. When you're on a 2-year contract, even if they have to sack him after 1 year, let's just say he does horribly in the first year, they'll look at the financials that they have to pay him in the summer. They'll be like, you know what? It's not that much. Let's just get rid of him so we don't have to get stuck with him in another year, because clearly it hasn't worked. So it could be a double-edged sword. Honestly, it could work well or it can't.
Yeah, I hear that. 1 second, Egal. I'll come back to you in a sec, bro. Don, from your perspective, obviously, I know your number one choice out of the poll you were linked to was De Zerbi, but it does appear now that it's going to be Enzo's. Two Enzos at your club. How are you feeling about it from a Chelsea fan's point of view? Are you excited about the potential of this appointment? I mean, listening to something from Guillaume Balaguer the other day, and there's a lot of people sort of out there in the footballing world that absolutely rave about this guy. He worked under Pep Guardiola as an example. There's a lot of people coming out of his his native Italy talking him up as one of the top up-and-coming young managers. How do you see it personally?
Listen, first of all, for me, like, obviously, when I saw it, I was a bit disappointed because for me, my first choice is De Zerbi. I think for me, the main thing why I wanted De Zerbi is because I'm more familiar with him. Obviously, we watch Brighton, like, they're in the league. We know more about De Zerbi from what he did last year, what he's done this year. I don't know much about Maresca. That's where I've gone and done my research, because I've seen a lot of people online jumping at it saying, oh, why are we looking at a championship manager? What's he going to do? Why sack Poch to go and bring this guy? There's a lot of people like Will saying, go get a big name. And for me, consistently this season, Terry, I've told you, listen, Poch doesn't know how to work with these players. We need to bring a coach who knows how to work with the players that we've got. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with Maresca. And I've been watching quite a lot of clips and whatnot on Wirescout of how he builds up from the back. That's one of the key things that I want in our team in order to attack and break down low blocks. And for me, bro, it's very similar to what Poch was doing towards the end of the season. He inverts a fullback a lot. Normally, it's the right-hand side where he inverts. He likes playing a 4-3-3. And again, doing similar things to what Poch was doing with like 2-8s and helping them crash the box. So it's quite similar to what we were seeing in pre-season and what we're seeing towards the end of the season. You know what I'm saying? And he's obviously worked with Lavia and Palmer when he was at Man City as well. And he's come from Pep. The main difference between him and Arteta is that he's actually had a little bit of experience after leaving Man City, whereas Arteta went straight into the job. You know what I'm saying? So end of the day, like I've said 1,000,001 times, the way Poch made the job look, he made it look like it was rocket science. Yeah, when this guy kept making basic errors, me and Egal could have done a better job than Poch. If I'm being real, yeah. If we was at Chelsea last season, this guy.
That's a lot of
doing
praise
a
for you,
madness.
Egal.
You're lying to
So
yourself, man. Pochettino did
For
decent.
me,
at the
yeah,
end.
bro, he did decent towards the end, but he should have been doing that
Pochettino
from
could have
early
got
on.
top 4. He still would have got sacked based on what the briefings were. It had nothing to do with.
He could have got top 4 if he did. He could have got top 4 if he changed his tactics a bit early on in the season. Like you're saying, you're right.
Clearly,
you know what I mean? So,
clearly, they briefed the media that he wasn't sacked because of footballing reasons. He was sacked. He was sacked because of disagreements with the board.
There's multiple reasons why he was sacked. Bro.
No, they said there was a whole review, Egal. They had a 6-hour review.
The reality is that these stories came out after he was sacked, but during the time when you guys were getting into Europe, everything was all positive around Chelsea.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There was a 6-hour review. You think in the 6-hour review they just told him, by the way, yeah, we disagreed on transfers. You're gone. No, there was more said in 6 hours. It's a whole 6-hour review.
Yeah, like they looked at the whole season. It's a 38-game season. Like winning 5 games at the end of the season and just about scraping 6th. And now we're playing Conference League as well. Just goes to show how badly this guy did. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? Man's gonna be going to Gibraltar, Malta, and these sort of places because of.
Listen, Kosovo, bro, Albania.
You guys genuinely
hold on, Egal. For me, Egal, like I've said, I'm not gonna judge the guy until I actually see him at the club, right? From what I've seen and the style of football, from what I've seen, the style of football that he plays, I do think it's gonna suit the players that we've got. The main thing that I'm a bit skeptical about is just the pressure aspect of the job, right? The little intangibles in the game, right? The fact that obviously he's coming from Leicester now, taking that step up to a Chelsea. You know what I mean? But listen, the managers that are out at the minute, bro, this is the route that a lot of clubs are going down. A lot of clubs are going down this route now, trying to find their guy that they can build with and that they can grow with. You know what I mean? So for me, like I said, the main thing that we needed is a competent coach. Yeah. Everyone's trying to bet Arteta's model because he ain't won nothing with his Avengers. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. But end of the day, yeah, what this guy's trying, what we need right now is a competent coach.
Oh, 1 second.
Listen, you man are just happy to be up there, man. You ain't won nothing, man. Relax. You relax. You ain't won nothing.
Yeah. But
you're saying that up there right now. That's what we're trying to do. But we're trying to actually get over the line. That's what we do over here.
We're on YouTube. We can give each other banter about football, but when we keep it real, your board are striving to get back into challenging and being in positions where they can compete for major honors. And with a manager who has previously worked under Pep, looking at a young team, trying to build it from the ground up, it is how football works. And you know what? It is a copycat system. So you guys are similar. You guys are trying to do a similar thing, maybe in your own way. But there's no shame in that. Like, why are you offended by the fact
I'm not offended by it. I'm not offended. I'm just saying that we're taking your idea. We're taking your little idea, but we're trying to up it, but we're trying to elevate it. Same way that Man City took a little leaf out of Chelsea book, but they elevated it and they did what they did. They dominated. You know what I mean? So end of the day, cool. Whatever you did with Arteta, cool. It worked for you guys, but you're yet to get over the line. And Man United right now have won 2 titles. They've won 2 FA Cups even. Sorry, they've won 2 trophies even, whilst you lot are still struggling to get over the line. So I'm confused.
Rewind. You said it's worked for us. But in the same 1 second, in one breath you said it worked for us, in the other breath you're saying we haven't won anything. So which one is it? Has it worked or has not worked? What is it?
Bro, I'm talking about in the fact that you're now up there challenging, right? It's put you in a position.
You need to up your internet,
position that you weren't in before.
Okay, so you're trying to give backhanded compliments. It's not going to work.
Taking Arteta on and helping him do what he's doing at the minute.
I mean, but 2 things could be right though, Egal. Like Arsenal have not won anything really underneath Arteta in the 4.5 years, except for the FA Cup with Unai Emery's squad. But then on the other hand, it's you guys are now competing. But I think what Don's saying is, I think it's pretty spot on. Like 2 things are correct here.
I'm just trying to throw a shot at what he was talking about, because if this was Chelsea, best believe Don would be blowing it up as a big achievement, or this team is doing so well, so great from where they were. But the fact that it's somebody else, he's going to belittle it.
No, I wouldn't, Egal. I'm sorry. Me and you are different. I've grown up winning things, bro. I've grown up seeing my team winning.
So I haven't grown up winning things.
Challenging, and I'm excited about that, bro. Yeah, I'm excited about actually winning trophies, bro. Yeah, don't try to say I would be the same way if I saw my team competing and we can't get over the line.
I see you on a weekly basis on streams.
Relax. We're not the same, bro. I've
You're
grown up
very
seeing things that you
tribalistic.
haven't seen or touched, bro.
Done.
Stop this.
Done. There's nothing wrong with tribalism. You're a Chelsea fan. You're tribalistic. If it was Chelsea, you'd paint it in a different brush. That's just a fact.
No, I wouldn't, Egal, because I've grown up watching my team winning stuff, bro. What have
Don,
you seen your team win?
We've seen you this season.
bro.
We've seen you this season.
You can't try and tell me that I would act like you where Arsenal are right now when I've grown up seeing my team winning, bro. I'm sorry, we're not the same. So stop doing this.
Don,
Do you know what I mean?
This season, have some self-awareness. This season, you were in 10th, 11th, making fun of Man United and Arsenal. And you're talking about, I would act different.
Fun of Arsenal. What are you even talking about? Making fun of Arsenal where?
This season, have you not been doing that? Come on, Don. You're better than this.
Of course I'm shameless for you not getting over the line. I know what you lot are.
My point is, understand your situation. You guys are rebuilding. I'm not even making fun of Chelsea right now. I'm just saying, if you were in this situation where you were competing for a league, you had a young team coming up, you'd be more optimistic and you'd be gassed. You are currently 4 years behind us in your stage, and you're talking with lip. It's crazy to me.
I can't relate to this trophyless argument. Honestly.
Yeah, I'm about to say. I don't know what it's like winning trophies. You know, imagine
you won 2 years in a row, but you guys were trophyless for 6 years.
Imagine, but we're not anymore. Imagine having your worst Premier League season ever and picking up a choice. Beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. It's a rare thing of beauty. I love it. I'm being shameless. Anyway, I don't care. Some super chats here about the situation that we're on. This says here, there are also more managers like Gary Neville, Staffy, saying about your unexperienced comment earlier. There's a lot of inexperienced managers that also foul. What's your sort of thoughts on that?
Well, that actually proves my point even more. I'm just saying, don't rule out these managers before they take over the job. Because as much as there's the likes of Gary Neville, Frank Lampard, them that didn't do well, there's ones that actually did decent, even though you haven't won anything, like the likes of Arteta. Even Ole did a decent job and just didn't win anything. And then, bro, I'm talking about after the rebuild, Egal. Just allow it. You know what I mean? I'm talking about
you
after
just
rebuilding.
picked up a trophy that you won. We won the same trophy.
Egal, that was not the point that I made earlier. Forget about the trophy.
We won a League Cup last year as well.
I'm saying there's managers who made a step up for the first time in a top flight team that did either horribly or did decent, didn't win anything, but they at least played good football.
Yeah.
And then there's ones that actually became generational, like Pep and Zidane. So we have examples of everything. So my point is, give someone a chance before you judge them.
100%.
But why should they get a chance?
Also give them the right environment. Give them the right environment. Try to work with them.
Well, of
and
course,
try to
but that's the context around it. Obviously, everyone's environment is.
I don't think Chelsea have been trying to do that.
The thing. Yeah, but Egal though, the thing that I don't get though, you're talking like right now, we've got all these players that want to leave the club, they're not happy at the club. That's what Potter walked into, right? That's what Graham Potter walked into. He should have never been the guy to take over from Tuchel, because that was a big job. But like I've said to Terry this season, I said if Potter had this team that we've got this year, I think it does a lot better than Poch, because tactically, I think it's better than Poch, right? A big reason why we finished where we finished this season.
Okay, but Don, just on that.
Yes,
how is
Potter hold on, H, yeah. Yes, big chances missed. Yes, inexperience overall, right? But look what happens when you set the team up correctly. They play better as a team. Would have won a lot more games if you set us up like that. And that's what I can see Maresca doing, right? Just do some research on the guy and his principles, his philosophies, and how he likes to play. Even when we played these lot at the Bridge, right? When we beat them, was it 4-2 when we beat them, right? For large parts in that game, they were just popping us about, bro. But their overall quality wasn't enough to win that game. If you remember that game, Disasi own goal. They had Mavididi scored as well that game. Do you know what I mean? So I was looking at him thinking, right, these guys are playing some good football. But I didn't really take it.
That's that Conference League Wi-Fi.
Bro, please get your computer hardwired, bro. I'm begging you, man.
Got a Weetabix box.
You know?
Yeah, I know it's coming back, but
do some research on this. Do better than Poch.
Get an Ethernet cable. Get an Ethernet cable, please.
Please don't get hardwired.
This super chat here says, let alone managing a football team, Lineker is not even able to manage a bowel movement in a match. That's true. He did shit himself on the pitch. The media agenda against Targ is disgusting. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of them questioning him about his future straight after the game. I thought that was the more I understand why they did it, but I do feel that it was exceedingly distasteful. Let him have his moment. Let him celebrate. It didn't need to be said there and then. When you're entering the job, the squad is yours. Useless Saka, Saliba, and Martinelli aren't Arteta's players.
Unless he said
unless Saka, Saliba, and Martinelli aren't Arteta's players.
This is just the stupidest argument ever, because when a manager doesn't do well, people immediately jump on his back and say, "Oh, look, he didn't do well these years," and they claim, "Oh, Arteta hasn't achieved over this long period." But then when he wins something in his first 6 months, they're like, "It wasn't his team." Well, are you going to discount all the years where it wasn't his team and only say 3 years under Mikel Arteta the team hasn't been successful? What are you going to move that?
Yeah, he can't be on a 4-year trophy drought. That's the problem with those arguments is they don't stretch it out for everything. I agree with you on that. I'm actually going to buy one for Don. I'm going to get his address after the game, and I'm going to buy Don however long he needs from his modem to his computer an Ethernet cable so that his internet stays on, bro. He just needs one.
Hey, Terry, bro, listen. Bro, man's got fiber now. I've got fiber. I don't know why it's lagging like this, but I've
do you know what? Anyway. Are you Wi-Spot? Are you on Wi-Fi though, or you plugged it in?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You could have 1 gig up and down, right? You can have the fastest internet in the world. If you don't plug it in with an Ethernet cable, all it takes is for somebody to turn a microwave. Someone can put a microwave on and it throws your Wi-Fi off. Do you know what I mean? Like Wi-Fi is crazy. It's streaming anyway.
I'll plug it in after.
Yeah, man. Yeah. No worries. Let's have a look here. I feel like breaking out the popcorn is what Daniel says. Even Don's internet knows he's talking rubbish. I don't think Don is. I don't think Chelsea fans should be panicking at this point about the manager per se, especially if we don't know much about him. I think people should stay relaxed.
Terry, when I was watching,
go plug that cable in, bruv. Go plug that cable in. Go plug that cable in for us. Please go plug that cable in.
His internet's on a bank holiday.
We'll bring him back. It's gone. The other big sort of managerial talking point, and we are going to get onto the game later, but is should Ten Hag go or should Ten Hag stay? There's reports out that he may get the chance to stay at the club now. Most of the other reports, though, have made it sound very much like some have said 100% he's already been told. There are others stating that, the dust is going to settle and they're going to move him on. A lot of people are expecting it tomorrow after the bank holiday weekend here in the UK. But a name that's emerged, Staffy, as a top contender for the Man United job is De Zerbi from the ex-Brighton manager. What do you make of that as a potential replacement for Erik Ten Hag?
Yeah, listen, De Zerbi is not my number one choice. As I said before, I don't have a lot of choices that I'm very keen on. As I said before, I'm willing to give the next manager a proper chance, just like the same I did with Ten Hag. Any manager is going to come in with questions. Any manager is going to come in with doubts. I don't think anyone is a clear candidate for the job, whether it's McKenna, whether it's De Zerbi, whether it's what's his name from Thomas Tuchel. Listen, we've been linked with a lot of names. As I said, bar Southgate, everyone else I understand the pros and cons of.
Would you take Poch?
Would I take Poch? No. I mean that one wasn't on the mark until Chelsea sacked him. So I'll put him next to what's his name, Southgate, to that one. Those are the two that I don't want. I think Poch has already proven to me. I said based on the Chelsea job, I'm gonna make my decision if he deserves to be a top 6 manager again in his career or not. And I think this guy should not be managing any top teams in any league. I think he's proven more than once now that he's not good enough for these jobs. He's a good enough Premier League manager, definitely not one to be managing a top 6 team to eventually take him to trophies and that. Obviously, Southgate, I don't need to speak about him because the guy hasn't even managed a club since he relegated Middlesbrough in 2009. So don't even joke with me on that one. But De Zerbi, listen, De Zerbi is a good coach. I have reserves over him eventually elevating his management style and his coaching style because I feel like he's very one planned, I should say. He has a very good one plan A, doesn't really have a decent plan B, plan C, and I don't like managers that are not flexible. He does deserve to get a step up, though, because he's done decent with Brighton, and he's done enough to warrant him to get a step up to a bigger club that needs a manager right now. Obviously, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, and Spurs are already set with their managers. The only two that don't have a manager right now and looking for one, it is Chelsea and United. So did he warrant himself a move? Of course. There's a reason why Bayern was also linked with him. A lot of people wanted him at Barcelona because, especially the style of football that fits the traditional style of football that Barcelona's been playing. So he deserves to be linked to these teams. I have my own reservations, but I would 100% give him a chance. I would 100%. Terry, me and you talked about it off air before. I told you why I like him and what worries me. So that just showed you from the beginning,
Yeah, of
weeks
course.
ago, that I would 100% give him a chance. I think he would be a better option than Ten Hag anyways, because I've seen Ten Hag for 2 years not being able to implement his tactics with the players that he has and implement a style of play, and he continues to struggle. He could win a cup game here and there. He showed that because he's won a League Cup and won an FA Cup, but that doesn't erase the shambolic football performance that we've seen in the league this season and in the Champions League.
So, Staffy, you want him gone? You want Ten Hag gone? Then is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, anyone who knows me probably knows my name and that I'm Ten Hag out. If you don't know that, then you probably just didn't watch me.
He's like
yeah,
Ten Hag out on Twitter.
I've been wanting Ten Hag out from it. No, I actually don't do the hashtags. I don't need to do that childish shit, bro. Honestly, anyone who's
surprised by that. I'm not gonna lie. Just because I'm watching the Man United situation, and look, from a Newcastle perspective, it's kind of benefited us seeing you guys benefited. We're going into last season. Obviously, you guys dropping points. We've beat you guys. Obviously, you beat us in the cup final. You won the final at the weekend. But seeing you guys have that dip is benefited us because we've obviously still are on the rise. But looking at you guys as a Man United situation, I'm looking at Ten Hag. Yet there's been disappointments. You guys have not been where you want to be, which is fighting for titles, of course. But do you see it as Erik Ten Hag has navigated yourself as a club through probably one of your difficult periods, a transitional period where you've got players that are not happy, players that are wanting out, arguments all over the place? It hasn't been easy for you guys. It hasn't been easy.
Most of these problems
with players, but he's navigated you as a club through this difficult period over the last.
Navigated to what? To 8th? To negative goal difference? To bottom of our group in Champions League? Why are we forgetting these things?
You're changing your squad. You're having to rebuild. Rebuilds don't take 1 year, 2 seconds. You've got a lot of players in that squad going back 2 years that you've wanted out. And you're on the verge of getting them out. The likes of Martial going, the likes of Varane moving on. You're moving players out because you want to rebuild.
Yeah, Varane is the same player that everyone keeps defending. This manager saying if he had
I'm just using him as an example.
No, but I understand what you're saying. I hear you, by the way. But Varane as an example, since you named him and Lissandro has been the partnership that everyone wanted this season. But he's also the same manager that benched him for a whole month during the season when we played City, said because of tactics. So don't tell me if we had this backline, not you obviously, but the Ten Hagers mainly say that if we had our backline, we would have done this, would have done that. No, because he benched half of his backline when he was available, and this is why I've been calling out from earlier in the season. There's a lot of mistakes that he's done on the pitch. Forget the whole navigated thing because I don't think he navigated us to anything. Yes, fair enough. He won us an FA Cup, and I give him praise on the manager. But he created most of these issues.
He's had to, I'm looking at this. Look, I'm on the outside here, but I'm looking at Man United and I'm looking at Ten Hag, and he's had to front up all the negativity in the press, the journalism, Sky Sports, TNT, all of the negativity that Man United get naturally when they don't do well. He's had to front that up.
Yeah, but that's something all the managers have ever suffered.
Day in, day out. He's had to front that up. And yet you've mentioned it could be tactical various. There's lots of rumours, whether they're true or not, that there's players that are not doing what they should be doing. There's players that are not giving 100%. He's having to navigate that potentially as well. And he's managed to get you through those 2 years. And like Don and a few on the panel have just reminded everybody, you've won 2 trophies in 2 years. Whereas nobody would have expected you win a Carabao Cup. Nobody would have expected you to win the FA Cup at the weekend, yet you have. And you're still in the position where you're winning trophies, albeit not being in the position that you are. So for me, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, okay, you're finally at a position now where some of these players are being moved on. You're finally in a position where you've got an owner in that actually cares about your club and has already shown in the early stages that he's willing to do the right things and make the right decision. Like I'm not. This is not to you. I'm just talking out loud.
I understand your point. I understand your point, Pete, and I think that your point holds. There is water, holds water. Your point, and there is logic to it, and I don't think what you're saying is irrational or
I'm on the outside. I'm just...
No, and I get where you're coming from. I also understand it from Staffy's point of view. I also view there's a topic that's sort of not being discussed amongst Man United fans, which is essentially from today. It's a brand new group of people running the club. We are going to be clearing out medical staff, recruitment. We've obviously got a whole new board that are going to officially start work. The issue is again, and I'm only using my experience here in business and my experience into the corporate world as an example, and my experience part of Team GB. When there's a massive overhaul, people get saying we've got to continue on the process we started. But that process was a Glazer process, which we already know is broken because the manager shouldn't have the control over transfers that he's got. There are loads of problems internally. I still believe clearing everything out, including the manager, could help us get back to challenging for league titles and being good enough to win the Champions League quicker, because I think you're starting from a position of absolute freshness, a complete and utter clean canvas. So for me, it's not even, there are definitely things that he's done wrong. There are also things that he's done right, because since the Arsenal game, he made fundamental changes to our systems that made us a better team. I thought we played quite well against Arsenal, narrowly lost. We beat Newcastle and Brighton when everybody predicted the defeat. And we beat City and played very, very well at the weekend in a game we were being laughed at for thinking that we could win. Will got laughed at for predicting a 2-1 win. I got laughed at for predicting a 2-1 win. You know, and professional pundits were on TV saying no chance, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 are going to get hammered. But that was actually because of the way the system was looking for 35, 36 games that Ten Hag set up, injuries or no injuries. If he'd have made those changes 4 or 5 months ago, made us harder to beat and break down, and would have grown from there, I think the conversation surrounding him would be very different. My issue as a Man United fan is I understand our injuries played a part, and it was such key players that were out. Because Egal would agree with me that if Saliba and Gabriel missed the lion's share of the league season, they wouldn't have finished 2 points. You wouldn't have finished 2 points off Man City. There would have been a bigger gap between you and them. I think most people would agree.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got the plethora of other players that were out as well. But that was where we, on the opening day of the season still, though, had massive holes in our midfield and we were being run through. And so many of us all campaign were pulling our hair out and thinking, why haven't we made a tactical adjustment to stop this from happening? That, for me, is still the problem. And I love that we won an FA Cup, and he deserves praise for it. You know, it etches his name into the history books of Manchester United. But and maybe I'm being greedy here, but that still isn't enough, in my opinion. Your progression over 2 years in the league has to be assessed in itself, away from just winning the trophies. We spend not just on transfers, but on salaries, on agent fees, as much as any of the big teams in the world. And we should be demanding progress towards trying to win those league titles. So I think when you look at the progress towards winning the league, you factor in some of the mistakes that he's made, and you look at the fact that it's a brand new regime that you went through at Newcastle. And I know that Steve Bruce didn't win you a trophy. You've seen so many. No, I understand that, but you would have got rid of Steve Bruce even if you were playing better football and higher in the league, because your new ownership would have said, we want a fresh start, we want to start again, and we want to grow from this point. So I feel like when you factor everything in, and look, people say we had injuries. I understand we had injuries, but we had injuries when we played Arsenal, when we played Newcastle, when we played Brighton. And we improved because the system was adjusted. And I heard all the commentators, the one thing that annoyed me about the commentators on Saturday, where's this United team been all year? Part of it was injuries. The other part was we've changed our shape when we're out of possession. And
it was
did
a
it
selection stage. This is why this is pissing me off. These people were acting like this. He stumbled into these selections in the last 4 games because he had more injuries. Because there's another one, super chat coming in from the biggest clown that I've ever seen super chat on this channel, Nabil Akbar. Might as well put it on, because there's not a bigger clown out here in the football terrace than him, saying we had no center back or left back. Well, guess what? We beaten City with no left back. So what the fuck is this argument? We played the same back line for the whole last month. The minute we start playing better football is because when he changed the midfield, and that was on accident. Because he had injuries in the back line where he put Casemiro there, and he started using the 6 that he benched all season, that he chased all summer, and stumbled into Ahmad playing because Rashford got injured. And all of a sudden, we beat Newcastle, Brighton, and Man City on the bounce. And even we played very good against Arsenal. Even though we didn't win, we played decent against Arsenal. So that's 4 games in a row. When he actually changed the way he sets up, we start getting better results and we start looking better. So that's why injuries don't make anything to me. Because if we lost to City, they would have said the same thing. Oh, you know, we had no left back. Half of you don't even rate Shaw. So why do we need Shaw right now? Now you're telling me we need Shaw. The excuses just fluctuate based on if we win and lose, and this is why it's disgusting.
I agree. So I think the only thing me and Staffy disagree on in that comment is I do think if we had mostly these main players fit all year, even if we hadn't changed the system, we'd have finished higher in the league. I agree
with that. Yeah, this team is better.
Exactly. However, it isn't just the personnel. We did something in that Arsenal game and beyond in those 4 matches. We were taking our inside forwards or wide players and we were tucking them into midfield positions out of possession, which made it harder for teams to progress the ball through our middle. Arsenal struggled to do it, but a lot of people just said Arsenal were playing in second gear because it was an easy game. We had to take that criticism, but then we did it against Newcastle. And you guys had chances, but we settled into that game. We ended up being the better side. Went away to Brighton. They had a lot of the ball. We stopped them from penetrating. And for the first time, 3 games running, it was the last 4 games running, it's been our lowest shots per game against average for 5 months. And actually, you think about the games, Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton away, where we often lose, and the best team in the world, City, how are we averaging less shots per game than the previous 5 months? Because the system in itself changed. And that's the thing, Nabil. I understand your defense of the manager. But at the same time, I don't think we're being intellectually honest if we didn't see those holes in the team. Because what about when we did have certain players fit? And we were like Wolves at the beginning of the season, pretty much everybody was fit. Equally, you say we had no left back. Why is Luke Shaw out injured? Because he was rushed back. Why was Lissandro Martinez injured for a large part of the season? His bone hadn't healed right, and we were playing him. These things are on the manager and the medical team between them to make sure they get right. We can't ignore these elements, in my opinions. Nabil says, oh my God, Martinez or Varane, you can't play a high line with Maguire and Evans, Casemiro playing centre-back. But this is so answer me this question.
No, hold on. And I'm gonna cook this guy because there's no way this absolute clown is gonna tell me he's gonna teach me football. You absolute idiot. We didn't even win these games playing high line football. So why are you acting like we played a high line against these teams anyways? We won 2 games before we beat City without Varane and Lissandro. Lissandro and Varane did not play against Brighton and did not play against Newcastle, and we still won these games. So why the fuck is this the excuse? It was never the personnel. The personnel could have elevated us, yes, to a higher finish. Could we have been top 5, top 4 if we had Lissandro fit all season? Yes. But that's not the argument that I'm making. He changed his tactics, and we started winning. It wasn't just the personnel, because as I said before, Varane got benched for a whole month because he said tactics. So let's stop talking about Varane when he didn't even want him to play, and he's leaving next summer. So based on this idiot Nabil, I should have no expectations going into the next season because we already lost 1/2 of the partnership. Now I'm gonna make excuses all of next season. Maybe like, yeah, but Martinez lost Varane, so I don't expect us to win. This is absolutely, the logic is just absolutely stupid. I can't believe this.
Okay, so who do you want then? Because like obviously you want.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. It's not about who I want. It's about saying this manager has not been good enough. I never wanted this manager out just because of a trophy. And Terry can vouch on this. I never came into this season expecting a trophy anyways. I said we're not good enough to win trophies. So I was never Ten Hag out because of trophies. That's why I'm not going to become Ten Hag in because he won me 1 trophy. And I'm going to tell you this. If we're going to sit here and say Ten Hag deserves to keep his job because he won 1 cup, then I expect everyone to have the same energy and say Arteta what? Because Arteta didn't win a trophy, right? So let's all of us right now say Arteta if we're going to keep Ten Hag. Because that logic makes no sense to me.
And Pete, on who do we want? I mean, look, I think the sensible thing to do is look at who's available and who's on the shortlist, because I'd love Pep. But it's not going to happen, right? So we have to be realistic in that regard. I like De Zerbi, but my view on anyone that can come in is there are question marks over them as well. So I think this is the problem with this conversation amongst Manchester United fans is everything's polarized. There are some that believe keep Ten Hag, it's going to work. They don't want to hear anything other than that. There are others that will say De Zerbi. There'll be others that will say Thomas Frank. There'll be others that will say, I don't know, bring me, who else we bloody linked to? Bring me McKenna. I think he's X, Y, and Z. That ain't going to happen. Bring me Potts. Yeah, you'll get some that will say that. And they'll believe unequivocally these guys will cook. I'm very, very open-minded and objective when it comes to this. They all come with a risk. I also look at the situation around, we've got to clear the playing staff out as well. Some people go, we're letting the players get away with it again. No, I believe all of that needs to happen at the same time. Johnny Sins here with the super chat says, Terry, thoughts on Ineos sacking Ten Hag before the final? If that was the Glazers, you will criticize them. Where is the same energy? Or are you saying it's a leak? I thought Ineos fixed the culture. Well, nobody has said that Ineos have fixed the culture completely as of right now. I've never made that claim. However, if there's people you need to get out of the club because they're bad for your culture, of course, those leaks are not going to finish until they're removed from the football club. At the same time, I do believe Ten Hag's already been sacked, because if they've made it very public, the new ownership, that winning or losing the FA Cup final wasn't going to be a determining factor whether he stays or not. And the fact that we're here and we don't know if he's staying tells you he's going. Because if they'd done the review over the last 5 months and loved him and thought he was absolutely integral for the growth, they would have announced it before now and shut things up. So I don't personally have a problem with that side of things. Mike here with a super chat says, the point about Ten Hag not adjusting tactics, De Zerbi is worse. He even said he doesn't change his style no matter what, and the words to that effect. But this is the thing though, Mike, I understand that. If your style is the problem, so Man United this season, our open midfield, leaking like a broken fridge, was, in my opinion, our biggest issue. It was whatever midfielder was in there was being exposed. It didn't matter if it was Casemiro, Amrabat, Bruno, or Kobe. Spatially, we were being exposed because there was too much room for them to cover. Now, if De Zerbi comes in and his tactics lead to us having holes that we're not filling and he doesn't change them, I'll have the same energy for him. So this isn't, again, it's not a personal attack. Any manager that comes in. Now, if De Zerbi's got a system that he doesn't yield from, but he's winning 65, 70% of his games and we're challenging for league titles and we're winning trophies, I'll look at those mistakes that made and go, that's just part of football, because everybody makes them. No one's going to be perfect every single game. So for me, it's about having the same energy. I totally agree with you though, Mike. If the next manager comes in and the same people don't keep the energy because the football's a little prettier, but yet we're still leaking opportunities in the same way, I'll call them out as well, because this is about Man United improving. This is about Man United improving. This is about Man United improving, not my agenda being proven correct or wrong.
Look at Postecoglou. We play great football, but we've got so many holes in it. And unless he corrects that, you know, and De Zerbi has a similar thing, United could have the same problem. What I want to understand is, what is the let's say you do bring in a De Zerbi, right? Let's say he gets appointed Wednesday, Thursday. What is the expectations of a De Zerbi going into next season with you being in the Europa League? Like, are you expecting De Zerbi to get you top 4, or is it let's just see what happens in the transfer window first?
There's a lot of things that I have to see first before I can make a judgment like that. So for me, last season, an example, until the preseason ended, that's when I made my stance on where United. I actually predicted United to finish in top 4, but I didn't expect us to compete, which was a minority at that time. And I said, you know, I'm looking at the recruitment, the players that we've signed this season. So I don't think we're going to compete, but we'll probably either stay stagnant or slightly regress. Obviously, we massively regressed, and injuries did play a part before anyone starts crying in the comments. But we did regress based on the signings that, in my opinion, weren't good enough to elevate us at least. So whoever the manager is and the players are, I would have to wait and see, okay, these players are good enough to play better football and get us to the top 4 or not. I will tell you this 100%. 100% the next manager coming in will play better football than this. Because this football does not get any lower than that. To finish 8th and a -1 goal difference, it doesn't have, bro, don't talk to me about zero respect, bro. Because I'll put you on my channel and I'll flame you in front of everyone. I'll flame you in front of everyone because you have so much trust for everyone and then you can't take it back, bro. Okay? And you're an Arab too, so anyways, for anyone who wants to understand, I'm Arab too, so there's no racism. I just wanted to curse him out in my own language. But anyways, I just wanted to clarify what that was. It's not racism. It's just other type of disrespect. But anyways, no, the next manager will 100% get us playing better football than this, because this manager for the whole season was so confused on what he wants to do. Going from 3-1-6 or whatever the hell he was doing, to finally go into a double pivot towards the end of the season, inverting fullbacks. Bro, it's just been all over the place, bro. It's been all over the place, and this is why we're in the stage that we're in. So I'm not going to make a judgment until I see enough.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I want to see who we sell, who we buy. I want to understand more at what we're trying to do. Therefore, the time scale. So my overarching standards is for the club to get back to winning Premier League titles and Champions Leagues. That's where I want to get to. But the time scale of getting there is going to depend upon who we bring in as manager and the type of recruitment that we're doing. So if we're just, if you know, if we're starting a if we're going for a relatively inexperienced manager and only buying young players, am I going to expect us to topple Man City next year? No, but I would expect better football. I'd expect us to push hard in the cup competitions to try and win them. Equally, the expectations for all of us could change in the summer of 2025 if Pep leaves, because that changes the landscape for everybody. So all those things come in. But I expect us to... This is an interesting super chat from Oral that says, you talk about Ten Hag. What about the ownership who fouled Nice? Where is the blind faith coming from? It's a really, really good question, because their project at Nice hasn't been particularly fruitful. It's not about Ineos. It's about the people Ineos have employed. So the differences between Nice and Man United, and I don't know the ins and outs of their project there. I don't know what they promised the Nice fans. I don't know what they're expecting. But Man United have gone out and got Omar Barada. Man United have gone out and got Dan Ashworth. We've got Jason Wilcott. We've got the likes of we've got Blanc that's come in. Jean-Claude Blanc. And these individuals are highly regarded in the world of football. Now, in my opinion, if you put those individuals into Nice and got them to run it, they may have performed better as well. Big up Newcastle for the Dan Ashworth. I know it's happening soon. You guys are getting some money for it. You're getting some money for that.
You got to pay that. You got to pay that big money for it. Come on. You know,
we ain't paying shit, bro. We ain't paying shit.
It's one of those weird ones, because you know what's going to end up happening. It's like...
It's going to happen, but you're going to...
there'll be money involved, but all Newcastle are actually doing is making a rod for their own back, because then the guy they want, the club's going to want money for as well. But this is the thing. So, Oral, it's not blind faith. It's just the people we've got coming in to run the club for a period of time. I'm going to give them the loyalty and support I think they need. I'm going to let it cook. That's what it comes down to for me, and that's it. This year says, what drove me crazy is his interviews. Erik Ten Hag never took responsibility for anything, just whined about players, the club, refs, Emery's team. What was really interesting was hearing the players talk after the game, and they basically said there's no excuse for the bad season, where the manager was consistently saying it's injuries, it's injuries, it's injuries. And I did think that was an interesting thing to hear. Enigma here says, should league performances and rankings weight more than a cup competition for sacking the manager? But it's about everything being weighed up, and this is the problem. I know that winning trophies is exactly what you're doing in the sport. We won the FA Cup, and we deserve to win the FA Cup, and I was proud of that performance. I'm going to move on to that in a minute, but we can't ignore that the ultimate barometer of who the best teams are is the league. That is the ultimate barometer. I love that we won the FA Cup, but Wigan won it and got relegated that season. So just winning it doesn't make, and we're Man United. We spent more than City in the last 4 or 5 years. We have to look at all the competitions we were in. I don't think we can just start ignoring them. One trophy doesn't erase a disappointing league and European campaign. Yes, the injuries were a factor, but last couple of games ruined that argument, because the same injuries were there. He just changed the tactics.
Thank you, Joshua. Oh my God. It's so refreshing to hear it from someone else that actually uses his brain. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. And look, I will say this. I said it on my show yesterday. There is a report coming out that we might retain Ten Hag. This isn't an agenda for me. I am trusting the football decision makers now that we haven't had any. And if people are not aware because they've been living in a bubble, we haven't had football decision makers running the club since Sir Alex retired. It's been bankers and accountants running the football club, making football decisions with no prior football experience. It's legitimately like going to Goldman's. It's like Chelsea going to Goldman Sachs right now and hiring a manager from the accounting department. Like legitimately, it's crazy. So if they decide that Ten Hag's the right guy to take their project forward, and he's going to be given a different structure, recruitment's being taken off him, I'm going to give Ten Hag the same support and time as I would a new manager, because it's beyond the manager for me. It's about the club structure that I'm focused on. So yeah, great super chat, my friend. Thank you. On the final itself, Will, I want to say congratulations to you, because other than myself, you're the only other person that I came across on the internet, from the punditry world, the content creator world, who predicted that Man United could do it. And you, like I, was laughed at massively for suggesting it could be done last week on the show.
I did too on Straight Facts, just saying. I know you weren't here, but
I weren't on there. Sorry, mate. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but okay, yeah. So I mean, talking about the final, for me, the reason that I predicted 2-1 for Manchester United was just out of hate, right? Like, I don't really like Man City, and I thought that they needed to feel some pain. I was just hoping that you guys could get it done, and that's what you ended up doing. Now, not to kind of rain on Man United's party, because it was a great result. Ten Hag gets another trophy in his second season, so fantastic. But I think it's like this new narrative that you guys just like played really well, and I don't necessarily agree with that, because the goals that you guys scored, it came off of City mistakes, which is how we knew the game was going to go. In terms of City were going to dominate the play. They were going to dictate everything that was happening. And I just think United, they capitalized on those chances that City gave them. But, I mean, look, like overall, it was a pretty entertaining game. And I just think City, they didn't seem like they really cared. Like, they weren't really putting in a good performance. They were very sluggish as well. And I think that they didn't really take United serious. That's why they went out, they partied like over the week. They were getting drunk and everything in the same week of a cup final. So, you know, I think it was a good result, but I don't really think, as you guys talked about this before, it shouldn't really change anything concerning the manager. I think he still needs to be sacked regardless of this performance. But, you know, it's a dub, it's a trophy after a terrible season.
I thought Man United did play well, and I think the tactics that Erik Ten Hag had was spot on. Going into that game, man, what did he have? 4 midfielders in the middle, making sure he had his players out wide, quick counterattack, very well suited to the style that Man City play. And he was actually, if you look at it, Terry, your opponents that you had to end the season and the way that you guys played to end the season was almost like a precursor to what you guys were going to do in the final. He really did use the end of the season to prepare for that final where
he did.
Manchester City, if you look at it, they were just trying to get win after win after win. After they won the league, they kind of thought, you know what, you guys were going to be an afterthought. And they just put out the same team. Nothing really changed. And it looked like Ten Hag had his plan put together. So you got to give him his credit. As much as you guys want to say he should be sacked and everything else, forget about that for a second. Just this one game, with the players that he had available and the way that he set up for the 90 minutes, I think you guys played really well. And it was good enough, and obviously it was good enough to get you guys a trophy, and that's all you really cared about. And the second goal, I think the second goal was a bit of class for Manchester United, where the first goal you could say there was a little bit of error, they gifted that goal, but the second goal, I could say, you know what, Bruno, good pass. They played it from the back to the front quite well, and Kobe Mainoo finished it off. So you got to give them their credit. I don't think you can say that.
But how is okay? Wait, but how was that? So I see people say like it's a tactical masterclass, right? How else was the game gonna go? You were never gonna go out there and have more possession than Man City. You were never gonna look better than them on the ball. So I mean, whenever you play that team, there's only one way that the game is honestly gonna go, and that's they're gonna dominate possession, and you have to try to.
Doesn't that make it harder to win?
Will, that's the. I think that's almost the point, really. I think that when it comes to playing Man City, if you open up and try and play them at their own game, you lose. Invariably, you're going to lose because most teams don't have the quality City do, and most managers are not as good as Pep Guardiola. So you have to adjust and you have to change to a certain degree. But where I think people look at it as a tactical masterclass, and we did build up to it, we made changes, is that we had to. One thing we haven't been good at all year was being in shape consistently when we're out of possession. We have afforded so much room and so much space, but we kept it really compact. And I would say you could argue that we got the tactics right. You could argue Pep got the first half wrong because he had very little width in his team, and it made it a little bit easier for us. Doku came on, and it made it a little harder. Although that he put a couple of good passes in, I still thought AWB handled him pretty well, in my opinion. A lot of City fans saying he was cooking. I know he scored a goal, but that really should have been saved by Onana. Out of all the shots Onana faced all day, how the easiest one went in it's actually been quite. It's almost like the representation of each season, if I'm being honest. But I thought we did play well for what we are. For what we are right now in 2024, we played well. And I think it all comes down to how you interpret and view football. Of course, in terms of who moved the ball better on the pitch, who played the better football, we often go towards a team that had the most possession. But I actually thought when we had the ball, for large parts of the game, we were more decisive. Bruno Fernandes didn't get hold of the ball as much as KDB, but absolutely outshone him. He had an absolutely fantastic game when we had the ball. I thought young Kobe Mainoo, and it's so interesting, we spoke about for large parts of the season, our midfield having holes in it. And I've never once felt that it was really about the players. I've always felt it was about the shape. We're now tucking in the wide players into midfield, which means there's less room for the midfielders to cover, so they're not caught out of position. And 3 or 4 games running, we've seen he's, in my opinion, one of the best young midfielders in the world right now. I believe it's one of the best debut seasons the young player has ever had in Premier League. And I got cooked for saying that the other day, but I said one of the greatest, not the greatest. What Mainoo has come in and done in a dysfunctional team, how he has stood out, some of the important goals he scored. And then to have, and we all talk all the time about what somebody done in semi-finals, what somebody done in finals. We all hold those games in such high regard because of the pressure and the eyes that are upon you. Watching an 19-year-old, sorry, who's come from our academy, which is such an important part of Manchester United's history, watching him come out and be absolutely amazing and score one of the best team goals I've seen from a Man United team in many a year, because that wasn't a mistake from Man City. We won the ball from across the back and we played the ball right up to their goal, and it was a thing of beauty. But what impressed me more than all of that was actually how we reacted to conceding. Because I don't know about Staffy, but for me, when we conceded that goal, that's when I got nervous. I felt really comfortable up until then, because this season, when we've conceded one, we've often conceded the second very quickly and fallen apart. And the fact that we regrouped, we had to play for another 10, 12 minutes, and we kept ourselves together, that for me, I was really, really impressed with. And in an isolated game that we had to win to achieve a trophy, I was really impressed with Man United at the weekend. Great individual performances, topped off by our two teenagers, Garnacho and Mainoo. And I was really happy for those young men, especially Mainoo, because I think it's the Mainoo final, and it will always be remembered as the Kobe Mainoo final. There are so many top players out there, and we are going to talk about Haaland in a minute, and others that have had multiple finals, multiple semi-finals, and never had a good game or always ghosted. The fact that young man Mainoo stepped up in his first ever final and performed like that against the best team in the world, against Rodri, bruv. Against Rodri. That for me, I was so happy for that young man. Really, really proud that he's obviously part of my national squad, but so proud he's part of my football team, because for me, that was one of the best young performances I've ever seen in a cup final in my life.
What Scholes said? He backed your point, Terry. He said
he's years of it. Yeah.
He said Kobe Mainoo is better than me. Did he say 10 times better than me?
He's 10 times better than me when I was 19. That's a very high praise.
So that basically solidifies your point.
What I would say about that is this: the one thing about the class of '92 that annoys me so much is they are so self-deprecating. Gary Neville does it all the time. Gary Neville talks about himself like he was a bang average footballer. He really wasn't. Like, you lot are all probably too young on here to remember him, other than Pete. He's old like me. He was brilliant. Paul Scholes, it's hard to remember. When Paul Scholes was 19, I was about 9 years old, and there's no way I remember football as clearly then as I do now. But Scholes wasn't. I wouldn't say he's 10 times a player. Scholes was ridiculous. But Mainoo is just... he is just amazing, and I was so happy for him. And to get the goal as well was just sensational. What did you make? What did you make of it, Pete? Sorry, mate. Go on.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add on to a point, because you talked about Man United's structure and that being the key. I think it was a bit of both. I think it was a bit of the players as well, and I think it linked in really well, because Man City have been doing this for a few games now. Been playing that really tight sort of formation, playing everything through the middle and leaving the wide spaces open for wing backs to come in. But the one thing that Man United had that they haven't had for so long, that they showed on Saturday, is that they had trust in each other. So within that system, they trusted each other to know that the other's going to be in that position and they could do their job, knowing that the other's going to cover, and knowing that if and when the ball breaks down, they've got the players with pace to absolutely attack Man City. And that's exactly what he did. On the counter-attack, they could not live with you at all. And I think that should give you as Man U fans some confidence going into next season, is that there seems to be a group of players there, however big or small there are, that actually trust what each other's doing. And the trust with Kobe Mainoo, Bruno Fernandes coming back in, the trust of having Martinez back in there, which was massive. He was fantastic in there. I thought Wan-Bissaka was fantastic in his positional play, defensive duties, and there's a level of trust there that they haven't had for a long time. And I think the tactical setup and the trust of those players, and knowing that you got those players in that could do the job, I think made the difference. You have a little bit of a kryptonite to that Man City, because it's not the first time that you've played that type of football against them and got joy.
It's a great point, and this is the thing. As much as I know there are Man United fans who want to be the most dominant team in every game they play, but Pep said it after the match. He said that Man United have always been a transitional team. And under Fergie, for many years against top footballing teams, it's a Man United way of playing. We've very rarely been the team that plays the most beautiful football and is always the most dominant on the ball, especially at neutral grounds or away from home against the very best sides. And I think what's changed in the last 10 years is we haven't been able to maintain superiority over teams that spend less than us, that are not near our overarching level in history. And that's been a problem for us. But in my lifetime, you know, when we went away to Anfield, when we went away to Newcastle, when you guys were a top team in the 90s, Arsenal definitely, we never tried to dominate the ball. We played transitional football, and it's only in the modern day era where it's kind of frowned upon. And I think there's a time and a place. Now, would I like to be better than City on the ball to dominate it? Yeah, because I think there's a sense of relaxation in that. Like when you play a match and you've got 80% of the ball, you're not as nervous as when the other team's got it. But yeah, I was very impressed. Just breaking news away from this subject. Interesting update on the Chelsea managerial appointment. Chelsea give formal permission for talks. Sorry, Leicester give formal permission for talks. It's going to be a 5-year contract. So the reports earlier that it's 2 years are off. It's going to be a 5-year deal for Enzo Maresca to go to Chelsea, according to David Ornstein.
Interesting.
Staffy, you change your tune?
No, that's interesting because we were just talking about a 2-year. Now there's high risk. So listen, Don and them, the ones that want to punch out next year, pressure's back on you now. Because you wanted this guy out, now you must deliver.
Terry, next time Don's here, if he says, "Oh, it's a long-term deal," because we did long-term vision, don't let him switch it. Because when Staffy was saying what he was saying, he was backing it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I said 2 years was a reasonable thing.
No,
5 years, I actually think 5 years is risky. So it's not me changing my tone. It's me dealing with the facts. I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, now that it's 5 years, we got to talk about it differently because it is a bit risky, but we'll see.
Remember this: Chelsea fans are going to switch up quick.
That is the issue with them. They don't have the patience, and I don't think there's a more impatient fan base than Chelsea. They actually are more impatient than any other.
It's not only the fans, bro. It's the whole everything. They got the fans, the backroom staff. They're trigger happy. They're ready to just get everybody out quickly.
No, they're not as impatient as us. No way,
bro.
No way.
You guys had 2 years. You guys had 2 years where you didn't sign a single player. I'm pretty sure if that happened at Chelsea, we would literally kill.
Yeah, but that's because we had a stadium to look after. Our manager gets into a Champions League final and we sack him. So we are.
I'm saying a fan base that didn't get a signing for 2 years. That is patience. You guys are patient.
By the way,
but then, like, what are the expectations now? Then, because you guys are talking about patience, but how much time should he be given? Because I still think he needs to be winning things and competing like right away.
Hang on.
Carabao Cup, FA Cup. He could go on a run during the Conference League.
And you know what?
The Conference League next season.
Where I agree with Will is that Chelsea are in a different position to say Man United. Man United are starting again this summer. We so much is changing. It is going to be the beginning of an absolute rebuild of the club. Chelsea are 2 years into their process. This isn't. At the end of the day, they have spent a lot, and this is where I want to hold Chelsea fans to account. Chelsea fans like Don, anyway. Don will state that we actually have a really good squad. Don will state we just need a more competent coach, and this guy's a more competent coach. The likes of Don and Ches are backing their ownership to get it right. They're saying they're doing the right thing to get rid of Poch. Therefore, you can't say all of that and then go, but we're starting again from ground zero, a new rebuild. That don't make sense. The same as Liverpool fans. Some of them are trying to create the comfort blanket and safety net of, we're at the beginning of a new 4-year rebuild. No, you're not. You said the best man in the world at running football clubs, Edwards, is pick your manager who you trust. You've got a team that was just in a title race. There's no 4-year rebuild. You're literally expected to challenge this year. It's as simple as that. And Chelsea, for me, got to be looking to be in the Champions League and they've got to be winning trophies straight away. 110% have got to be looking to do that. And if you're not, doesn't mean you sack the manager, but it means there has to be question marks. You have to review it. You have to talk about it.
But I guarantee that the Chelsea fans will, and that's the key. That's what that's what we're saying, is that, they won't have to sack the manager. Like they didn't have to sack Pochettino, having put out a fantastic run to get them into European football, albeit the competition they didn't want, but they still will, and they'll still call for it. And Dom, as much as I think he's a top guy, he wanted Poch out. And I guarantee, like next season, if they're in that same position again, they'll want the manager out, and they'll want a new manager. They'll just want a shiny toy. Yeah, but how long? And yeah, maybe they should. But how long does this go on for? Chelsea have been really well known for this, but they normally, under the previous owner, would do it in around a 3-year cycle. They would normally have that 3-year cycle, and yet maybe get some success in that. But how long can you just keep going? New manager, you know, bring his own players in, not being successful, shipping them out, starting again. How many managers are you going to go through to get to that point? Because
until you get the right one.
Let's be honest. This Premier League right now is the most competitive within the top 8 or 9 in the Premier League as it ever has been. Any one of us on this panel, anyone that are not on the panel that support other clubs could be in that top 4, top 5, top 6 conversation next year. All of us will be going all out to win trophies because now a Carabao Cup means something. An FA Cup means something. People used to turn their nose up at it, but it's the only way to win a trophy. So everyone's going to be going for it. It's not as easy now to win those trophies unless you're Man City in most cases.
I think performances have got to be looked at in this though. So I'd love to get, like, I know Will is very much standard FC when it comes to this. But I'd love to, if every team performs as well as Man City, it is still a cast iron fact that someone's coming 6th. But if the performances were amazing and you were 5 points off top and you were 6th, would you warrant sacking the manager at that point?
No. Not at all.
Could you repeat that again, Terry? You can't cut out.
So I get the point that if Chelsea next season finish 6th, but they finish 35 points off the top, 20 points off the top 4, there's an argument to sack him because that sounds like failure. But of course, all 6 members of the top 6 could perform amazingly, get very high points, and only be separated by 5, 6, 7 points. Would you still sack a manager for coming 6th if he was only a handful of points away from winning the league and the performances are really good and consistent?
So not in his first season, but I think, you know, there should be pressure for him to get sacked if you come 6th and then you don't do anything in the other competitions like that. Like, so whenever I say, okay, well, Chelsea, then they should keep sacking managers until they find the right one, is because everybody just makes it seem like it's just the Premier League that we're talking about here. There's still the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, and now they're going to be in the Conference League. I think next season, even though this is his first season, the expectations for Chelsea should be he's competing for top 4, deep cup runs, and then the Conference League, he has to win that. To me, like, that has to be a must for Chelsea. Yeah. And I think he should be given at least 2 seasons. For me, I think the first year, yeah. But after next season, if it's still not looking good, then yes, they should sack him, and then you go get somebody else.
So I get where you're coming from. I think it's unhealthy for a young squad to be constantly sacking a manager. You're not actually developing a team to play as a unit.
Unless, though, where I disagree with that,
you need some senior players in this team.
They need players. I get you that, but not if the club keeps moving in the same direction. If the club keeps moving in the same direction, it's less of a problem. The issue you have is if you keep changing course. That's what Man United have done. Sacking a manager isn't a problem if the club's footballing philosophy, the profile of players you buy, and the sort of standards and direction remains on course, because then it's just a new head coach who's going to be coaching you as an example. But if your new head coach is a completely different person, profile, style of manager, and you're starting again, then you're right. It's about getting that element correct, in my opinion. And someone here that says 6 is still 6, but it isn't, is it? Yes, mathematically, but if you finished, this is the point I say to people, Standard FC say everyone should act like City. They're the only club that are serious. But if everybody acted like City and spent like City, somebody would still come 20th. You can't stop that from being the case. So clearly it's how you behave and how you perform over your position. If it's just about position, then none of us should care about performances, should we? We have to be balanced about this instead of being almost pedantic to the point. 5-year minimum for the new Chelsea coach. Crazy is what the Elite Pundit says. Only Twitter ex-babies don't have patience is what Gav says here. This is back to the Man United. It says, I hate when people say we only won because they made mistakes, but is mistakes not part of the game? Has City not scored goals that were mistakes? Yeah, that's what I get people saying it. I'll challenge City fans on it, though, because when they played Brentford earlier on this season, they won 1-0 and a player slipped and Haaland went through. Every City fan was saying, we put the pressure on them. That's why they made the mistake. So I'm just going to hold them to that opinion. But even though I don't think Garnacho running in was made the goalkeeper come out.
Wait,
It was
didn't
a
we
mistake.
make a mistake too? I'm so confused. Nana's mistake.
Yeah, true, very true. So Eric Ten Hag is not good long term, even if you see positives now.
No,
I mean, look, not in my opinion, but like I've always said, I don't care about my opinion being right or wrong. If he stays, I want him to do a good job. I won't have a vendetta against him. I'm just not that kind of person. This here from Tony says, it's a good thing Staffy wasn't around when Sir Alex Ferguson came to the club. Sir Alex Ferguson got time and was able to build the team he needed and had structure behind him.
Yeah.
But that's an easy argument, though.
Comparing, first of all, Sir Alex, who came in with much higher credentials than this man going into the job, and comparing football, when did Sir Alex take over? What year in the 80s?
1985.
85, yeah.
85. So comparing football in 85 to football in 2024, where the guy had to come in and actually get an alcoholic culture out of the club versus right now where a coach is meant to just come in and coach and just apply basic tactics. Yeah, that's a great comparison. Yeah, good thing I wasn't around for that time.
The one thing I would say as well,
question for you.
Go on, mate.
How long did it take Sir Alex Ferguson to start winning at Manchester United?
Took him around 4.5 years to win his first trophy.
All right, so back then, would anybody have been wrong throughout those 4.5 years to want him gone?
So yes and no. It's a really good question. So there were Man United fans, like match-going, local born and bred United fans that wanted him to go. What they didn't have an understanding, there's rumors that he was close to being sacked. These have always been pushed back by the owners that used to own us then, board members that were at the club at that point. Well, people forget the managerial jobs were back in those days compared to now. It was a combination of what a footballing director does now and what the head coach does. So Sir Alex wasn't only coaching the team on the pitch, he was fixing the internal elements of the football club as well. Our academy, which has been famed, was basically falling apart. The behaviors and culture and drinking elements of the club had major problems, and he was fixing all of these at the same time. So he was doing, if you look at Man United now, he was doing the job of the new head coach and what sort of Dan Ashworth stroke Barada were doing, and he was kind of building things up. The Man United board stuck with him because they saw what was coming through, and the focus was to start building what was always part of Man United's DNA and history, but we'd kind of lost it, which was building young and exciting teams. But it was just taking time because back in those days, you weren't able to buy 10 players in a summer and it was a little bit different, if that made sense. So there was that patience that came in. I think what gave Fergie more time, though, is what he'd done with Aberdeen prior, when Scottish football was at the peak of its powers. He'd gone and taken over Aberdeen, who were a much smaller team, and made them more dominant for a few years than the Glasgow sides, beat Real Madrid in the European Cup final. And those things gave him that little bit of time. So I think we have to look at the situations for what they were. Equally, that's where I have sympathy for Ten Hag, though. He has come into a really broken structure and problem. And I don't blame any of that on him. But I also believe that he may have been tarnished by that toxicity of the Glazers. And I just want to start afresh with all new people, as I said earlier, a completely fresh canvas. Ironically, the same way Fergie did. Because when Fergie came in 85... yes, he still had to get rid of the problems, but it was starting again from fresh, which made it easier to grow and get the team back to where we wanted to be. So I think that's that answers the question.
Do you think Chelsea's a more toxic environment right now than Manchester United?
I don't think there's much. I don't think there's been much difference. I think the one thing we have in our favor, I think a lot of our fans are. I think we're maybe a little bit more excited about what might come because the new ownership haven't made any big decisions yet. Where with Chelsea fans, they've had 2 years of Clearlake and Todd Bowley, and it hasn't gone well. So even if they're like, yeah, I like the idea of Enzo, there is still going to be an underlying feeling of, oh, what if it goes wrong again? Where when I'm looking at Man United right now, and I can't speak for all Man United fans, I'm kind of excited about these decisions because we haven't had football people making decisions since Sir Alex left. So I think there might just be a little bit more encouragement for us. But Pete, I know you got a shoot, mate. Top man.
Pleasure to be on with you all for you for the first time. Terry, pleasure as always.
Always great.
Make sure you get those likes, do all that good stuff on the way out. Take care.
Guys, I wanted to ask you all, do you want to get back to the final quickly? A lot of people were talking about, I can't remember his name, Erling Haaland after the game, a player I do rate massively. And I think the stat that came out was he's had something like 9 semi-finals.
Finals, isn't it? Was like
something like this, and hasn't produced in any. Was this a case at the weekend, Will, of Haaland going missing, or was it just a case of the Man City team not producing enough opportunities for him? What did you put it down to?
Nah, Haaland's just a fraud. Super overrated player. I say it all the time. It's like, look, when he's on the pitch, it's like City are playing with 10 men. Because if he's not scoring a 2-yard tap in from great service, then he might as well not be out there. He doesn't really provide that much to me outside of a distraction, right? Because of his stature and because you see all his past stats, I feel like the defenders, they do give him more focus, which can open up things for his teammates. But just on ability alone, Haaland is a very mediocre player. And I think that he's a product of the systems that he's been in versus just how good he is as an individual player. I say it all the time. Like, I remember earlier in the season when Madrid were linked to Haaland, and I was saying I'd rather take Julian Alvarez. I think that he's better than Erling Haaland. To me, guy's overrated. And it's just more so about the systems, and he needs great service, and he needs everything to click for him to actually be effective in games. But, I mean, you definitely do expect him to score in a final. It's just what he is. He's just mid.
You're taking it too far when you say he's a mediocre player. When you say Julian Alvarez is better than him, come on, man. The guy's literally producing some of the highest standard goals tallies we've seen in the Premier League for the last 2 seasons. What do you get? 27 goals in like 29 starts this season in 31 games. That's a ridiculous return in the Premier League.
Yes, but you're watching the stats. Watch that, but watch with your eyes. Watch what you're seeing on the pitch. We're not talking about stats here.
Majority of these games that Haaland is scoring, he's scoring in bunches, or he's scoring a winner, or he's scoring the difference maker, or as much as you want to make fun of tap-ins and you want to make fun of him scoring goals close to the net. Yes, his teammates are providing good service, but he also has amazing movement off the ball. I was in your camp when he was at Dortmund. I was criticizing him. I was saying, you know what, maybe he's not as good as he is. Maybe when we see him at the Premier League, we're going to criticize him more. But from what I've seen from him for the last 2 years, I can't call the guy a fraud. I think if you put Erling Haaland in majority of teams, he's going to put in a good return. And especially if you give him the service that he gets, he's going to get you a good return. In the cup final, you know what? There's players who drag their team through the thick in cup finals, and there's players who deliver in semifinals throughout the league. He just might be that guy who necessarily doesn't deliver in finals, but 90% of the season you can depend on him, and it doesn't diminish who he is as a player.
That has nothing to do with what Will said, though. Will exactly said.
No, I was bringing back to the main point. No,
but the main point was him not scoring in 9 finals / semifinals, and Will's absolutely spot on, because to get to a final or a semifinal, you're most likely playing a higher level team, because the high level teams end up getting to semifinals and finals. And when he doesn't have any goals, I don't even have an issue with his goal scoring. I mean, to be very honest, he bullies the smaller teams. He has bullied a few big teams here and there, don't get me wrong. But the fact that you just have no impact in semifinals and finals just shows exactly what Will said. I think he's an elite finisher. I said this before on the terrace, and I said again, he's an elite finisher, but he's a mediocre player. Just super overrated. His overall goal game is non-existent. People like to argue, but yeah, he doesn't need to be a Harry Kane, as an example, who has a great hold of play, great passing range, this, and that. That's fine. But you got to just accept him for who he is then. When a lot of big games come up, especially in finals and semifinals, as we see, and he doesn't contribute with something, it's because he's most likely locked down by someone's midfield and someone's backline. We've seen Rudiger put a shift on him a couple of times. You know, we've seen he got bullied by Martinez last game. It's fine if you guys want to accept him for who he is, but then you can't blame people like Will and me when we say he just doesn't have an overall game. You're just gonna have to get used to him scoring in other games where, yes, it will lead you to eventually winning trophies or whatever. Because I'm not saying he doesn't contribute throughout the whole season, but you'll see a lot of stinkers against big games because he doesn't have the way to get involved in games. When you don't score, because I used to use this criticism for Haaland as an example. I said, what happens when he doesn't score goals? How do you get yourself involved in the game? And he doesn't have a package of attributes that gets him involved in the game. You can see sometimes a striker drop and link up play, make some passes, take a defender with him so someone else can run him behind, all that stuff. He doesn't have all these elements in his games. So unfortunately, when he doesn't score goals, and you're not looking at the stat sheet, and you're not looking at Sofa Score and Foot Mob and whatever people want to watch, you're not going to see any impact. So unfortunately, that's just the player who he is.
It's uncomfortable conversations because, like, when he comes up against physical centre backs, he's not really effective. And it's like, what if you're not scoring goals? What else are you contributing to the team? Like you just said, Staffy, like Harry Kane gets ridiculed because he hasn't turned up in the semi-finals he has turned up in semi-finals, but he hasn't turned up in finals. But when he's not contributing goals, he's holding the ball up, he's playing it out wide, his playmaking ability comes out. And in that final against United, it wasn't just him that stunk out. Like Kevin De Bruyne overhit 3 or 4 passes. But Foden had, 2 opportunities in the box to control it, had a bad touch. And I think for Guardiola now, it's going to be how can he get more out of Haaland? If he can't, then Staffy's right. If, other than elite finisher, what are you contributing? And if Foden and De Bruyne aren't giving you those chances, then Haaland effectively isn't an elite player.
I look at this as a bit of a ring fence conversation. So I get what you're all saying in terms of if you view Erling Haaland through the prism of your own preferences. For some people, he isn't a preference. I want a striker. If we'll have the opportunity to take Alvarez or Haaland to Real Madrid, he's taking Alvarez because he believes he's a more complete player, and that's what he wants to see. And I think that's absolutely fair. I think Haaland is a world-class finisher and therefore a world-class striker. If we want to get sort of nitpick and say, is he a world-class overall footballer? You'd probably turn around and maybe say no, because he can't do other things. But I think he's a world-class professional football player who will win you many, many points, win you many games, and help you win lots of trophies. I think it's a separate conversation to how he performs in finals, because we'd all agree that Thierry Henry was an elite level footballer, right? Awful record in finals. KDB, would most people say, is world-class and is technically brilliant, doesn't have a great record in finals. And I think for me, it's more of a nuanced conversation about turning up in those really, really big games. Harry Kane, yeah, his hold-up plays better than Haaland in finals, but his overall performance based on the Harry Kane we know has been nowhere near his standards every time he's been in a final. And I think for me, that's one thing where City fans should still be putting pressure on him. Yes, he scores a shit ton of goals, but delivering in finals is a really key component for me when it comes to your overarching stature in football. Finals and semi-finals especially are huge. If I think about my club, Man United, and some of my legends, whether it's Ryan Giggs against Arsenal in 99 as an example, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Teddy Sheringham. I think about Roy Keane in semi-finals. I mentioned earlier, Mainoo, 18, just turned 19, performing in a final against one of the best teams in the world. It's legacy defining. I'm not saying that the goals that Haaland scores are not legacy defining, but there's multiple pillars that go into that. And for me, it's an area where the final and semi-final performances need to be addressed more so than his overall game, because I'd still sign him at Man United because the guy's going to get you 30, 35, 40 goals a year, which is going to contribute towards you being in title races.
I don't know if he'd score that at Man United, Terry.
He wouldn't.
I don't think Haaland bagged that many goals because there's nobody.
Let me preface that. If we're playing well and creating chances, not right at this minute. I hear you. Yeah. Sorry.
One second. We're all on here bashing Haaland for his performances in finals, but we're then in the same breath, we're looking at some of those guys who are in his team that are supposed to create those chances. Kevin De Bruyne hooked after 56 minutes because unfortunately he got injured or something. The player of the season, Phil Foden, they're not catching no smoke. In my opinion, the striker, his job is to finish those chances if they come to him. But those players around him that are supposed to create those chances and help him out are not doing their job either. So they need to hold smoke also.
Wait, but then he go. But then, okay, so then like when you have when somebody's calling him like an elite level player or a world-class footballer, to me, that means even if you aren't getting that service, you should have the ability to maybe create something for yourself. That's why when Terry just brought up the Man United example, and I know that he said, if you guys are playing well, but this is why I don't rate Haaland that much, because without his teammates, he can't really do anything by himself. So for example, like if you look at some of the best attackers, like in the world, right? Anybody? Like Vinny or like an Mbappe, right? Let's say you put one of them in Manchester United in this current system that you guys are playing in right now. They would still be effective. They would still cause problems. If you put Haaland in this Man United team, if everything's not going perfect, he's basically invisible. Like I watch City games, I'll do like a watch along, and he would score a header, and that's the first time that I saw him all game. I don't even know who was playing because he doesn't.
Who's the player at City? Who's the player at City that you think is that guy? Then is it Foden?
Foden? Like, wait, in terms of the guy, like,
who's the player at City who you'd say is the one that takes the game by the scruff of the neck and wins it for them?
I mean,
do you say it's
Rodri?
I mean,
yeah, right.
Okay,
like Rodri.
You guys, Rodri, Foden. In my opinion, the person who should be holding smoke is the player of the season. The player of the season. Where is he in this final?
He won the league. What you talking about?
Where is he in this final? You guys are talking about
Yeah,
Haaland.
no. We nullified them this game. If you want to talk about this game in isolation, Foden didn't have a great great game. But Egal, let me take you back again to the question that we're talking about. We've been talking about his record in semifinals and finals. Foden has turned up too many times for me to just hate on him for one game. Yes, Foden had a poor game, but Foden has turned up in so many games. He turned up against Madrid most recently when he scored a goal or two. I forgot how many goals he scores against Madrid. He's turned up in so many games. When they needed him on the last day of the season to win the league, he popped up with 2 goals. Obviously, West Ham is not a big opposition. I'm just talking about the impact of the moment itself. Foden is far more a superior player to Haaland, and it's not even a question.
So then why is he not getting the same treatment?
No, but
I just said he had one bad game.
But this is the Gal. I think the point you're missing there is I think that final games of the season or run-ins where you're scoring important goals, semi-finals and finals, it's about looking at the overarching. It's about having credit in the bank. So, for instance, I've seen Paul Scholes for Man United score in an FA Cup final. I've seen him score a big goal in a Champions League semi-final. It doesn't mean I expected him to do it every final and every single semi-final. He delivered. Beckham, go to the 99 season in isolation, scored the equaliser at home against Tottenham. Andy Cole got the winner as an example. You had Scholes scoring in the final. You had Keane in the semi-final against Juve. You had Ryan Giggs in the semi-final against Arsenal. Multiple players delivered. It didn't mean when Giggs and Beckham didn't score in the Champions League final, we said they ghosted. It's about what you do. And when you look at Phil Foden, and I haven't actually gone through and looked at all the stats of Phil Foden, if we're just going to put it down to stats, but I swear he scored in semi-finals, and he may have even scored in a final before. For me, it's a case of
in so many big moments, so many times.
For me, when I look at Haaland, the fact he had 9 finals and semi-finals in the best team in the world and he hasn't delivered, it's an area where I don't consider it nitpicking. It's an area where we're looking at the best of the best, and the best of the best are separated by these very moments. Vinicius Jr. has scored in a Champions League final. He may do it. He may do it again and win one for Real Madrid, scoring 2 winning goals in a Champions League final. What that does for a legacy is massive. It's gargantuan. It can't be argued with. And I'm just saying that I look at Haaland differently to Staffy and these boys. I think he's phenomenal. But I look at his performances in semi-finals and finals. I hold those games in high regard. It's why Drogba, if you take away Drogba's semi-final and final performances, Drogba wouldn't be considered the player he is today. It's what he did in those games that elevated him to a godlike status in football, because he just delivered so goddamn much. He delivered so goddamn much. And I want to see, by the way, I said this about Harry Kane. I want to see Harry Kane do it because I rate the player. I want to see Haaland do it because I rate the players. I like what they do. I kind of get that Haaland's only got a few strings to his bow, but I like him. So I want to see him deliver in the same way that I've seen other people become legends. But the problem is, for me, it's like I can't have one rule for one and not for another. Does that make sense? And Haaland's got the medals already. He's got the goals. I just want to see him not against Man United. I'd love to see him one day, though, like kill it in the Champions League final. I'd hate it in a way because he'd do it for Man City. But I like him as a player. So if I remove my fandom for Man United for a moment and just think about this as pure football, I kind of like to see him do it because I like him. But what you do in semi-finals and finals is key, man, in my opinion.
Haaland can't even help Norway make a European competition. Like, what are we talking about here? I'm telling you, he needs the perfect players around him.
He got injured.
He's been so
it's just
for how many years?
You just have to accept him for who he is, though. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, we cannot have direct comparisons between Foden and Haaland, because not only do they play different positions, they're absolutely different, complete profile of players. One actually dictates the game a little bit more, and one just waits for big moments. And it's fine. This is not necessarily an insult. There are, especially when you're a striker, sometimes you're just in a graveyard shift until you get a chance or two. And elite strikers take these chances even when there's not a lot of them. Haaland has done a lot of that. I am not diminishing Haaland, the finisher, at all. Because if anyone doubts Haaland as a finisher, then yes, you're pretty much deluded. This is not what we're talking about. You have to accept that he's that type of player that sometimes he's just going to be marked out of certain games, and he's going to have minimal impact. I think he had 12 touches in the game against us. 12 touches in a 90-minute game in a final is inexcusable, but this is just who he is. I can't set that expectations for him anymore because I have eyes. Stats don't tell me anything with that I don't see with my eyes. Haaland is not that player that gets involved in games like that. So unfortunately, if your team is not on their best game that day, which is what we've seen for City, you're going to see Haaland have minimal impact, and it's okay. Those two things can be right at the same time. Two things can be correct at the same time.
And I just went back, by the way, to from 2019 up until now, and this is only a brief scan, but Phil Foden he assisted and scored in the semi-final or final of the last 3 Champions League campaigns. He's created goals in EFL Cup finals. So, and listen, has he got the greatest semi-final final record ever? No. But he has delivered in terms of creating chances or scoring goals in multiple Champions League semi-finals, in domestic cup finals. So just because he didn't deliver against Man United, he's got credit in the bank. Speaking of credit in the bank, I did look at this. I mean, performances are pretty good. But in terms of delivery, I did see this about Bruno Fernandes. 7 semi-finals and 4 finals across his Man United career. 12 goals scored and created across those 13 games. It's not bad going for a player that never turns up or does anything in big games. And his assist the other day, by the way, I don't know what you guys made of it. I thought it was amazing. I've watched it about 1,000 times. The pass was ridiculous. Love that guy. Sorry, Staffy.
He's nice.
Don't do that, because I was on the match reaction and I said I praised this. See what you do, man. See what you do. You always push these agendas that don't exist. And I gave him praise for that. And that was an amazing.
No, I know you did. I know you did. But
and he played good. I gave him credit for that. Yeah. He ended the season very well. And you texted me a lot on the side. And remember when you texted me, you were like, "Oh, he said something about Bruno," and I was like shaking my head. He's been playing well. Like that's a little bit of the joke there, because like he is playing well, and I can't.
Bruno's gone back to playing in his preferred position as a sort of off the striker. You know, so I don't know, it's number 10, whatever it may be. Even in the false 9, he's still doing that same job. He just thrives there. He just thrives there as a player. The fact that from when Ronaldo arrived, I'm not blaming Ronaldo, up until the last couple of months going back there, the fact he spent 2.5 years not in his best position, you actually look back at it now and just think, what the fuck were we thinking? We had a midfielder that was scoring and assisting at a rate that had never been seen in English football before. And I understand performances matter, but for some players, it's just a case of when you have a midfielder that he outscored and broke Lampard's record of most goals in across all comps in a singular season. A year later, we're dropping him deep. It's like, brother, he's okay deep, but he isn't as good deep on the ball as he is at creating and scoring at the other end.
He's not a good ball carrier. That's the thing. This is why in the beginning of the season, Terry, when we were signing Mount, that if you remember, that's why I said that was my first red flag with Ten Hag. Because he had someone who plays good in the final third, just needs someone to carry the ball to him, and instead he got a Mason Mount. I never thought we needed a Mason Mount. And if you remember, I wanted a Caicedo, because I said Caicedo would be that perfect balance between defending and attacking, where you can leave Bruno up top to do that thing what a 10 does, which is be risky, give the ball away sometimes, take some shots into stuff like that. And this is why the whole season we struggled. I never wanted to see him in day.
You've heard Ancelotti basically talk about Jude Bellingham in a way, and I hope these are real quotes that I read, which basically said, he won't be dropping deep for us. He's going to stay where he is, because that's where Jude Bellingham is kind of at his best. But Egal was shot off just before we actually get to the section about Arsenal, which is interesting.
Couldn't wait to go.
Let me just, I wanted to ask you guys, there's a link I read about them today to Zubimendi. Will, obviously, probably know a little bit more about him than people that predominantly watch the Premier League, because you watch La Liga. Is that the type of profile you think Arsenal should be looking at over the course of this summer?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't really watched that much of Zubimendi, but what I would say is no. For me, I think Arsenal need to go out there and look at a midfielder that's more so already proven in the Prem, that's not going to need time to adjust, because I think all the signings that they have to make this summer, it has to be players who are going to be able to help them win immediately, right? Like not guys that got to embed into the team and then they got to catch up to like the physicality and the speed. So I don't necessarily think he should be the guy that they go after. But at the same time, I haven't watched him as much.
Yeah. What about yourself, Staff?
No, listen, I like Zubimendi. I haven't watched a lot of him. I won't pretend that I did, but I've seen enough for him to just see what kind of player he is. I think he's a good player. I think we've spoken about him earlier in the season as on the top 6 before, and I didn't think really he's the signing that I kind of see Arteta going for. Because I think the thing is Partey is leaving, so I'm kind of looking for a like replacement with Partey. And Partey, even though he's a physical player, he kind of lacked a little bit on the defensive end. And I look at Zubimendi, does he fit? I mean, I see a scenario where him being there, playing in the Arsenal team, but is he the perfect fit for me? Probably not. I feel like they need someone with a little bit more of a physical presence in that midfield, as equally as being a very good distributor of the ball. Like you need like a Busquets. He's more of a Busquets than he is, I don't know, like a Casemiro as an example. But you need someone with a little bit more of a physical presence, because I feel like it's a big thing in the Premier League. You can't get these players like Jorginho as an example. Jorginho would struggle if he didn't have a physical midfielder next to him.
Around him,
Kante covered him for years. Rice covered him this year, because that's just the type of player he is. I'd rather go for someone who's a little bit more rounded than just being that dictator that Zubimendi is. Good player. I probably think they would need something better than that.
And then also, like, how much would Sociedad even want for Zubimendi? Like, how much?
Well, you're probably looking at similar. I mean, this is what's interesting, because Bruno Guimaraes seems to be the player that a lot of Arsenal fans want, but a lot of the stories coming out of Newcastle are he's going to cost ridiculous amounts of money. We don't really need to sell. I'm intrigued by Newcastle's FFP situation, because they're not in Europe now. So that 70% marker, they no longer need to hit. There's a Premier League marker of 85%. So does that actually, for Newcastle, does it relieve the pressure on selling people now? Because if Newcastle don't have to sell, they're not going to, unless the players are forcing the move. So I think some fans want him, but he could be more expensive than Zubimendi.
But I don't think that much more expensive, because I saw reports that Bruno has a release clause of like 100 million. You could go in there and you could buy him. And I think that would be more so the move for Arsenal to make than Zubimendi, who's coming from a league where it's a lot slower. You're going to have a lot more time on the ball. And he is good on the ball as well. But I don't really think that that's what Arsenal need.
A report here says that he's got a release clause of about £51 million, Zubimendi.
Zubimendi has a 50. Oh, okay, never mind.
Only this
How much
one
is it?
51. I've just Googled it. There's one place here saying 51 million. There's another that says 60 million euros. So it's probably about the same. Another one here says 52 million. So if that's I mean, that's what Arsenal have got to get right this summer. They need a goal scorer, but it depends on how much that person costs you. But then you've got to look at the other areas you need and the quality. I really think Arsenal, again, I would hate for them to do this because I like him. But I think if they're going to buy someone that isn't already in the Prem, Barca want rid of him. I would look at Frankie de Jong.
Yeah, I see a better scenario with Frankie de Jong, because I feel like Rice's partnership with Frankie de Jong would be decent. Because I wanted Rice to partner Mainoo in our midfield. Obviously, it's not possible. Like, we can't get Rice off of Arsenal. Let's just be honest. But I always looked at Arsenal at Rice being Mainoo's perfect partner there. Because when Mainoo goes up the pitch, as we've seen, when he crashes the box late, like we've seen, like that goal versus City as example, when he goes up the pitch in general and dictates play and does his whole thing, he can rely on someone just sitting, not necessarily a sitting six at all time, but they can take turns. So when someone else goes up, someone else can cover him. Rice does that. Rice goes up. I know he doesn't have the best ball distribution, but when he goes up the pitch, he's kind of effective. We've seen him chip in with a few goals, a few assists and stuff like that. When Frankie de Jong is on the pitch and he kind of goes forward, carries the ball, because he's arguably the best ball carrier in the world right now. So when he goes and does that, Rice can actually cover for him. I'm like, okay, I'm going to drop right now just in case we get countered, this, like that. I'm going to cover that hole in the midfield while you do your thing. Equally, Frankie de Jong is not the best defensive player, but he can kind of sit a little bit while someone else is up the pitch and doing that thing. So I feel like he's a better partner than Zubimendi in my idea.
I mean, I hear that, but then at the same time, though, if you bring in Frankie de Jong, right, one, it's going to cost a lot of money, and everybody says that. Yeah, so it's a lot of money for a player that isn't a DM, right? He is more of a central midfielder, and it's like you brought up.
That's what I say. It's a partnership.
But then the thing is, then that could get tricky, because now it's like, let's say if Rice goes up and then you have like Frankie de Jong and he's like that line of defense before like the back line, that could be tricky if you lose the ball now, because he's not the best defensively. So I think also they do need somebody a bit more.
Not really. I'll tell you why. So Arsenal's defense is much more capable of defending the transition than probably anyone else in the league. I think they're the best. They're the best back line in the league in defending transition, whether it's Gabriel or whether it's Saliba. So yes, having what's his name, Frankie de Jong as an example, the first person on the transition rather than a Rice. Yeah, it's not ideal because Rice is a better defender than him. But I don't worry that much because I look at my backline and my backline can defend the transition better than arguably any other team. That's the issue that City have. City on the transition are a very poor team. This is why at this time in age you see Kyle Walker still playing. Kyle Walker is not at his best at all. And I've seen people like LB call him out and other City fans, and rightfully so. But the reason someone as Kyle Walker plays all the time is because their backline and Rodri are not great at defending the transition. So they kind of have to balance it out with someone else. So that's why they keep him. I look at Arsenal and I'm like, they're much more fit. They are much more capable than anyone else in the league to kind of afford to having somewhat of a soft six who is not that great physically. And I don't even want Frankie de Jong as a six anyways. I told you he'd partner Rice in that midfield. It would be more of a double pivot, and Odegaard is up there doing his thing anyways. If that makes sense.
No, I think it's a really interesting one to see what it is that what they're gonna do. I'm intrigued by it a lot. We have some super chats here. First one says from Sophia. I hope you're well, Sophia. She says, I think this has a lot to do with Pep Man City system. Back the Haaland situation. Haaland for the other clubs he has played for contributes more than just goals. In a counter-attacking system, you see more of his attributes. Well, he has got speed. So I think, again, in a team that plays on the transition, maybe you would view him as more impactful. I think it's a really good point, Sophia. This appointment will change Chelsea either way. If it goes right, we'll give time to Enzo. If it goes wrong, the whole structure could be getting destroyed. Imagine it goes wrong for 2 Enzos on the bounce. Just putting it out there. It's judging only from the interviews is hard, but if he behaves the same way with players, he'll lose all respect the moment the club starts to play good. I don't know what that's in relation to. It might be in relation to Enzo. This was for the Don earlier. It says, Don, please stop waffling. You change arguments to suit. It's ridiculous. Chelsea are done. No title for 10 years plus 2 Enzos, both championship quality, is what Gunnar Verf says. And Chike here says, big up Terry and the gang. Why can't every club in England build up Real Madrid and demand high standards? Also, I'm tired of people saying nobody can beat Pep. The same issue in the US where nobody thinks you can beat the Chiefs. Well, not everybody can behave like Real Madrid because it would be impossible in the sense of you could have the ambition to be there, but if you don't have the money, I can't act like Elon Musk as much as I can. Like, you get those people that are always, those people that are out there and they're always sharing like powerful quotes from people about how to behave and how to become a boss and how to become a guru. Bro, great. That saying works, but I can't behave like Elon Musk. I've not got £100+ billion in the bank, so I can't have the same life expectations of him and to do the same things. There's no way that Leighton Orient can wake up tomorrow and go, we're going to start acting like Real Madrid. When we sack our next manager, we're going after Zidane. So I get your point. You should have the ambitions to get there, but you have to know where you are. End of the day, how tall are you, Staffy?
Touching 6'4".
Oh, you're 6'4", so you would have a chance. How about you, Will?
6 foot.
6 foot. So you two could. I couldn't. Doesn't matter how great my determination is. I'm 5'10". There was no way I was going to make it in the NBA. No matter how much I tried, how hard. Do you get my point? You two, even 6 foot. I don't know if it's tall. I don't know how many basketball players. Probably not.
It's not actually tall for the NBA. Yeah. It's not.
6'4" is not even tall for the NBA.
Yeah.
To put it into context, Steph Curry. You probably know who Steph Curry is. That plays for the Golden State.
Yes, I know he is. Yeah.
He's very tiny, but he's 6'4".
but exactly right. You get those players that look small, but in reality they're still quite big, right? You get that in rugby over here, right? There's a few players you look at, oh, he's not that big, and then you read and you see that he's 6'2" and still weighs 17 stone, but it's next to the other guys. He looks like an absolute a shrimp. So that's my point. So yes, you can have the ideals to be like Real Madrid, but not everybody's got the facilities for that big man. So yeah,
to be fair, we don't spend that much money, Terry. I mean, so I think the last maybe 7 or 8 seasons, we only spent big 3 times. It's Hazard, Tchouaméni, and Jude. Everybody else, it's been good deals like Vinny, Rodrigo, those guys. They
but historically, you got a Bill, you got a Ronaldo.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay,
obviously, when you got Figo at the time, even Zidane at the time was record money.
That was record fee. Yeah, it was
Zidane, if he was in today's market, he would be almost 300 million. That's how much.
Yeah, I think it's also this is the biggest thing. The biggest element is wages. It's the wages, and you guys, like all the other big teams, City spend almost as much on wages as Arsenal earns in income each year. So when Arsenal fans say we should do what City do, well, until you get the money up to over 800 million a year, you literally can't. It's physically impossible to. And that element is where, so again, having the ideals of getting there, but understanding it's going to take time. So what Arsenal fans should be saying is we should be acting like City. So let's help the club build up the revenue by buying the merch. And that's why when I see Arsenal fans moaning about the merch coming out, but then saying we need the club to spend like City, I think, But if no one buys the merch, if no one buys the sponsors products, you're not going to increase the revenue. There we go. But look, boys,
Madrid is also state funded. I'm not even making excuses because I expect my club to operate at that level because we're that big. But they are kind of state funded.
No, that's a great
the
point.
country's club. So.
Listen, everyone who's tuned in, I want to say a big thank you to all of you. This stream will take you through to Staffy's stream on his channel. So make sure you go and check that out and support Will, Staffy, and everyone else that was on earlier in the show. Thank you very, very much indeed. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you.